Dwayne from Driven Wild Outdoors, and we're actually a huge fan of his. We actually hope that you're a fan of his and Gavin as well. And I hope that you'll catch and subscribe to his channel. He's got some great, very interesting Raptor news for us this evening. And this evening, the show, we're going to be talking about the Ford Maverick, the Ranger, and then the Bronco at the end. In each category, we're going to be talking about best model to buy. We're going to be talking about pricing, of course. So pricing, best model, and is it worth buying now? Is it worth maybe not buying at all? And is it worth waiting for a better price? So we're here to help you out with pricing, with options, and to bring you the latest and greatest, all the changes on our three models, Ford Bronco, Ford Maverick, and Ford Ranger, so that you're all in the know. And of course, our community in the chat, we've got some real experts in the chat, and they'll be helping dropping down some information to make sure that we don't miss a thing. We've got an amazing community here, and I hope my community here is going to subscribe and catch Dwayne's content over at Driven Wild Outdoors. Dwayne, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm trying to manage this new technology. I've never done this type of stream before. It's actually pretty cool. Hello, 4 High, 4 Low. Good to see you in the comments. Ridgeview, hello. Always nice commenting with you as well. Johnny, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for asking me. And our little return, so to speak, to YouTube is I'm excited.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you back on YouTube. It's great. I just caught your episode under one of my pseudonames, I guess. And I'm not even going to try English, French. I sometimes just can't get past certain words, but we caught your latest Ford Ranger Raptor video and found that to be a touching story as well as some good information. You know, one of the points that Marie and I, of course, Marie was watching with me and she really jumped on the point when you said that the Ranger in the shelter green, which is the color Ranger Raptor, that's the color we ordered. He said it doesn't really pop out and get the attention that some people want when they're spending that kind of money on a model. And you also did a great job of pointing out, performance wise, it's an incredible buy performance wise, but at least in that color, it's not going to jump out. We actually have a red one at our dealership, and I find it jumps out more, but I think you're on to something there. It doesn't quite jump out as much as the Bronco does.
Yeah, and I watched 3 other reviews. There's a guy up in Northern Virginia that has one. He's done probably the best job reviewing one so far. And he said, I bought it for me. I bought it to drive. I bought it for performance. He goes, but I was thinking that more people would notice it. And I think it's because unless, the Bronco, let's face it, it was so much different. It just stood out, right? The last thing or the closest thing to it is the Jeep, as far as like the type of vehicle it is. And it's not like it's cluttered with 6 or 7 different manufacturers in that space. So the Ranger, though, and if you know what it is, it's an awesome piece of equipment. It's the performance is there and all that. So maybe someone commented on the video that red would really pop out. So, and I'm like, well, so I just think, to me, if you're buying it for that, hopefully you're not just buying it for that reason. That's why I said in the video, you're not buying it for people to look at it. Well, you are buying them to look at it. You're just not, if that's the only reason. Anyway.
Good point. And I think actually a lot of the sales of these seem to be going to people that are not just buying them to be, looked at the way people buy often Lamborghinis or Ferraris. If you don't want to be looked at quite as much, you buy something that doesn't stand out quite as much, such as a Porsche 911, kind of blends in a little more, doesn't scream, look at me. The Bronco, it can't help but get so much attention. You make a great point about it. There's only 2 in the space, right? It's not like the Ford Escape segment, that that subcompact, not subcompact, but the compact SUV space. There's like 38 to 40 some competitors. It's a space that's almost impossible to stand out in. Whereas the Bronco, when you're comparing it to a Jeep, and I mean a stock Jeep, not a modified Jeep, but a stock Jeep, the Bronco has so much more presence. The whole front of it, the whole grill area, the wheel, everything is just so high up. It's wide, it's massive. Whereas the Jeep, you'll get that after all sorts of modifications. But usually people that do the modification of, let's say, a 4-inch lift and huge tires, they've also thrown on a lot of other personalized items. When you put on personalized items on a vehicle, you're probably going to have 9 out of 10 people no longer like the vehicle, but then you really like it because people personalize to their own really specific desires and I guess what they feel is attractive and pertinent to them. And Peugeot, no, you will not be ignored. We see you there, my friend. Glad you can make it, Sanjib. Glad you're here. Jack Evans, thank you so much for your membership and being here on a regular basis, pretty much every night, every live. And Ridgeview, fantastic moderator. We've got a great community here, and we want to hear from our community in the chat. What do you think of the Ranger versus the Bronco? I think a lot of people in the Ford community have that choice to make. You're looking at, do you pick up an F-150? Do you look at a Ford Ranger? Or do you look over at possibly a Ford Maverick? Or are you going to get a Bronco, which with the top coming off, it can almost essentially replace that need to have a convertible vehicle, which is hopefully a Mustang, because there's some convertibles that just don't quite fit in the space as well. And I'm not talking about the Mazda Miata. I actually like the Mazda Miata for its great handling and reliability. I was thinking more something along the lines of like a Mini Cooper or certain models, certain BMW or Audi convertibles that just aren't worth the trouble and hassle, the $800 oil changes, if it's a Mini, the constant electrical and mechanical problems, if we're going to be realistic here. So yeah, I encourage everyone to watch the episode you just put out this afternoon. So Dwayne over on Driven Wild Outdoors covered his Ford Ranger Raptor order, and his thoughts and feelings around it. And of course, you're a man of many talents, so you're gonna have to add what I miss out. But you're an entrepreneur. You're in
Yep.
real estate
Yes.
purchasing
Bill.
and selling, as well as building.
Yep.
I'm sure I'm
Well,
missing
yeah.
three.
Well, we're expanding our business, and I talked about in the video. Just check it out, and you'll see why. But um, I was 2 months away from work. Right, I was taking care of my mom, and that just moved the needle for me in a lot of ways. And one of the biggest ways is I need to spend a lot more time getting us back where we want to be. But more importantly, you realize in times like that that family is number one.
Yeah,
And the Bronco is a perfect complement to most of my family. Like Gavin, for example, he loves the Bronco, and my daughters love it as well. They think it's cool. My daughter's like, "Oh shucks, my car's got to go to the shop, so I get to drive mom's Bronco every day." So it's like I know she wants one, and so everyone gravitates to both of our Broncos. And
absolutely.
so, okay, if we're going to spend less time doing other stuff and more time with family, let's concentrate on doing what everybody wants, and let's just hang out with the Broncos. So we are going to start modifying mine finally. It's no longer just going to be stock with graphics. It's going to be built out through the rest of this year, and that's going to be the fun part. When that Bronco gets to Supercell next year, you will unlikely know is the same one that went last year.
Very, very cool. Marie and I are kind of facing a bit of that decision as well, because if when our Ranger Raptor does get built
When
in a year, do we really want to give up the Bronco for it? And because it's a bit of a family sacrifice if we're going to have, our wild track was 83,000 Canadian. We got an employee price on it, so it was less, but still a good amount, a big chunk of money.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
Bronco, the Ranger, if we can have a price carryover, would stay at 83,000. So we're asking ourselves, the Bronco's kind of a do it all vehicle. And to Ed, to talk, Ed, I see that you're talking about how you currently have a Ford F-150 Raptor. We also had a 2019 Ford F-150 Raptor here with about 75,000 kilometers on it. It was fantastic, extremely reliable. I do expect the Ranger Raptor, though, to be really, really reliable. We'll talk about that when we get to the actual segment on the Ranger. But if you're thinking about getting a Bronco, you said you're worried about cabin noise. There's definitely, I think, Dwayne, you'd agree with me. We can definitely say no matter whether you get hard top or soft top, there's going to be some noise in there. That's quite a bit more than what you'd get out of your F-150 Raptor.
Yeah, it is. But the way I look at it is what you're buying a vehicle that the sound represents what it is, right? The tires, the
Yeah.
off-road ability, the doors are removable, the top's removable. So every time if you're buying a vehicle because you want it whisper quiet inside, it's not for you. But if you're buying it because it's fun, it's cool, it's comfortable, it's fun to drive, it's versatile, you go off-road, do all kinds of fun stuff, pull a small boat with it, go camping, go to the grocery store or the mall. Even if your idea of four wheeling is going through the retaining pond at the mall, like someone did around here, all of that stuff, the Bronco's for you. And yes, it comes with a little bit of noise because guess what? Just like like a Mustang, for example, the dark horse that I had, the that car was loud. When you cranked it up, I mean, you could put it in quiet mode, but what's the fun in that? When you cranked it
Yeah.
up, you heard. So if you wanted a quiet car, it wasn't for you. But if you wanted one to go from point A to point B pretty quick and look cool doing it, that was the car for you. So I think it's all about what do you want to do with it. And just remember, bless you, and the noise comes with it, but it's not, when I say noise, it's not that loud,
Yeah,
you know?
I've never been, you could say, disgusted by the inside of my Bronco. My F-150 Raptor, though, even with the big tires, the off-road capability, you could drive at, highway speeds and hear next to nothing. Whereas the Bronco, you're definitely going to hear wind noise. It's not like you're hearing engine and exhaust noise the way you do with the Mustang, which
Yeah.
I can always take more engine and more exhaust noise. Actually, I shouldn't say that because I've had a muffler delete on a 2013 Mustang GT California special and driving down to the beach 5 hours away, headache and whatnot. It was too much, but there's definitely some wind noise going on with the Bronco, but for all that it does, some people say, well, it should be, there should be less wind noise. Well, then the top would have to be heavier and the doors would have to
Right.
be much heavier, making it much harder to take the doors off and much harder to put the top back. From our 2021 Bronco, maybe I'm getting weaker with age, but I found it pretty easy to do it one hand, opening up the soft top. And I also found it noisier. Now we've got the 2023 Wild Track, and I'm convinced that it's heavier or that I'm weaker with age, and that it's heavier, but it also cuts the sound down more. At least that's what we're seeing. What's what we're feeling. We're also noticing on the
Well,
24 hard top Broncos less wind noise than we saw back in 21, where they still had a lot of improvements to make on that hard top.
Well, and Peugeot had he's got a good comment here. It says loud Bronco hardtops exist, but only because they need adjustment. So there's two types of noise. You have that sort of subtle ambient, that constant noise, right? From the road or the tires. But then sometimes you can get a weird noise. The clicking. There was a fix for that. Also, Becky's Bronco on the passenger side front panel when it's below 40 degrees, which is a summer day to you up there in Canada, but for down here, we're cold at 40 degrees. What happens is, and especially if you play around with the recirculate on the air or not, it'll actually make a fluttering noise from the gasket over the sport bar, which is right over the window. And I played around with some foam expansion tape above that seal, and that took care of it. So, and Peugeot is
Oh,
right.
cool.
There's
Yeah.
two types of noise. There's the sometimes the panels aren't connected tight, or you hear a clip or a pin clicking or whatever. That's one thing. But overall, the Bronco to me is not very noisy, but I think it's because I just think it's such a cool vehicle. I know what I'm buying, especially if the top's back. I'm hearing everything, but that's kind of why I did it because I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm almost thinking I need to hear more noise. I'm thinking, hey, I should switch out my exhaust because I didn't go out full out BOV blow off valve, but I did go with the sort of the adapter, and it behaves like a blow off valve. You put the gas in hard enough, the pedal in hard enough, then you let go quickly, and it's going to
And
give
you
you that noise, the turbo blow off noise. So that's actually
right,
been nice. But now I'm thinking I need to hear more exhaust. So having the top that we have doesn't bother at all. And of course, with how the Broncos
yeah,
set up, it would have been a hassle more to have a lot of Fords when they have the panoramic roof. Well, all the panoramic roof Fords have the little carpet, the sort of the windscreen that pops up as soon as the top gets drawn back. And that's
Yep.
just not something that's been incorporated into the Bronco style. But hey, well, that's what we're here to talk about tonight. So as you can all see, Dwayne is extremely knowledgeable. He's got hands-on experience. He's also a worldly man with all the businesses that he's running. He's got a lot of knowledge up there behind the belt, we could say, even though I guess that's not where the knowledge resides. But anyways, a lot of knowledge and experience behind the belt. So I do hope you subscribe to his channel. We're lucky to have him here tonight. So I'm honored to have you here, my friend. You're not just a friend, you're a friend that I really respect and know that I can learn a lot from. And I've already learned a good amount when we get together down in North Carolina and go wheeling. So we hope to get to do that again soon. Car questions answered. Welcome to the show. Thank you, Brandon, for making it in here. M. Peugeot, thanks for mentioning that initially your top was horrible, but I've had some Broncos where the top was much worse than it should be. And I actually had one Bronco go through two tops, mostly because the first top that was ordered was the incorrect top. And then they ordered the proper soft top. And even the mechanic who was installing it was thinking, this is heavier and looks somehow thicker, better than what they had just taken off the vehicle. So that was the feedback that I got. Now, without having a picture of the two beside and really studying the two at the exact same time, I can't 100% attest to that. But I can tell you from experience, I'm liking my 2023 soft top. Brandon from Car Questions Answered, fantastic channel to check out. Definitely subscribe. He doesn't really need the extra subscribers. He's a huge success. He must be at about looking at his videos getting hundreds of thousands of views. He must be at a million subscribers by now. But huge congratulations. That's a huge success story and great motivation for us all. So tonight we're about to get right into the official show. We're going to be talking about the Maverick, changes made and changes to come. Some that are guaranteed, some that are educated speculation from inside, a little bit inside knowledge. And even when it's inside knowledge and inside rumors, they don't
Yeah.
always work out. They don't always come to fruition. Things sometimes get canceled last minute, and sometimes things get created a little last minute, like the Bronco. Over normally a product gets sort of built over almost a 10-year period before hitting the market. Same thing for the Lightning and the Maverick, three models that popped out within about 2 years from someone initially having the thought to it actually being unveiled or even delivered to dealers. We're also going to be talking, of course, about best model to get and why, and should you buy now or should you buy later. So that's going to be a lot of my dealership experience and working around these vehicles on a daily basis for now just about 11 years. And I used to shop them, every 6 months. So I've been looking at Fords for over 20 years now. Welcome to the show, everyone. Now, we're officially going to get into the show. So let's start right up. We're get rid of these wonderful. Just to point out that the Ranger Raptor, if it is in red, does
Yeah.
pop out more than the green. And even if it's like the blue gray that people either seem to love or hate. But we're going to be talking about new things to come to Rangers and whether you should get a Raptor or whether you should get a V6 2.7. So I really look forward to that. That's episode 2 of this. And then episode 3, we'll get into a proper full Bronco talk. All the changes made, changes to come. Should you buy now? Should you buy later? Pricing. We'll do it all. Dwayne and I have got you covered. So
That's right.
Dwayne, remind me. So you build houses.
Yes.
You have the real estate business, and
Yes.
that's what I called out. Now, did I miss one?
I mean, that's the only thing. There's always some little things you're invested with or whatever. But the big thing is real estate. Whether we're buying and selling or flipping houses, I don't like that term, but it's what people know it by. There's that, and then there's the building the new, and then the retail side or the sales, full service real estate, helping someone sell their house or helping them find a house to buy. And so that's sort of the three different companies there. Thank you for all the kind words you said in the intro, by the way. I appreciate that. Ridgeview asked, I think it was Ridgeview asked in the comments, did we all drive on the Outer Banks of North Carolina? We did.
Yeah.
And we actually helped. What was it? An excursion that got stuck. Remember
Yeah.
when we actually helped get an excursion out of the sand. That was pretty cool. But yeah, we've done that what, twice, Johnny?
Yeah, we've done it
Uh,
twice. Go out for dinner after.
yeah, and
No, it's
yeah.
been,
Speaking of dinner, you know the name on that cup, right?
yeah, yeah.
Awful
That's where we ate
Harbor.
last time. Yeah,
Well,
right
yeah, we
on.
were there. Yeah, Gavin and I were there yesterday. We were like, yeah, Johnny and I, we've been here before. It's pretty cool. So, yeah, we've had a good time, and I appreciate you, like I said, once again, having me on the show. I do want to help add some. Well, I watch your videos and learn so much about the new stuff from the what's coming, the deal side, the dealer side, really comparing interest rates to the cost of the vehicle, which, as we all know, interest rates can take you out of the vehicle purchasing,
Absolutely.
business period. But it can also take you from, maybe you were going to buy the Raptor, but now the pressure's too much, and so you're going to end up with a Badlands or a Wild Track, which is still not a bad trim. I have a Badlands, I love it, but sometimes it'll move you down in options, so to speak. So interest rates have a real significant real world issue, reflection on this. I
Yep,
haven't been
yep,
to Ford,
absolutely.
I haven't been to Ford's build and price recently, but yeah, I went to it today and was amazed at the differences there.
We will have that coming up. So let's jump right in to the episode. Welcome, everyone. Tonight, we're talking about the Ford Maverick with Dwayne from Driven Wild Outdoors. Check his channel out. We've got a man with a whole lot of knowledge, running several businesses beyond the YouTube business, building homes, buying and selling homes. You've a man with a lot of knowledge behind the belt, and also a lot of knowledge when it comes to Ford, because you have several of them. You've got two Ford Broncos. You waited a year for a Ford Ranger. And, I'm glad to have you on the show. Thank you for being here, my friend.
Well, thank you for having me. And I read something today on the Ford, or oh yeah, on the Maverick. And I hope I'm not spilling the beans here. That some options maybe with the tailgates coming out. Did you see that?
The option, sorry, my link cut out for just a moment.
Uh, so maybe the Ford Maverick gets a sort of a mid bed gate type
Yeah.
thing. Are they going to change the bed on that? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so absolutely. So that's not spilling the beans, that's introducing the beans. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about changes that have been made to the Maverick, changes that are coming to the Maverick, pricing, of course, which model should you buy, and should you buy now or later. So one of the major changes that has been made, you're completely right. You've got that mid-bed tailgate. So let's look at what that looks like in everyday use. I think this is actually pretty helpful, because let's face it, the Maverick has a 4.5 foot bed, and that's not a ton of bed. So there is a patent filing suggests that the Ford Maverick could get the midgate. So this was written by Brett Foote just recently on May 4th. I hope May the 4th was with everyone yesterday. So how this would set up, and I know this isn't the greatest here because the lighting I've got in the studio, it doesn't do great with white background, but you see right there, you got the space, the metal, the bed metal underneath the rear window. You'd have the seats and the metal that could fold down so that you could slide longer objects in without opening the tailgate. So with the tailgate closed, you've got the tailgate here, it's closed. This is a Ford patent. That's why it's not the prettiest. This is how patents get put in. So you've got the
Right.
tailgate closed, you've got what looks like a surfboard with the fin right there, and instead of having just the 4.5 foot box, you've got the metal of the bed that somehow either slid down or pushed forward or back. You've got the seats that are obviously would need to be down, and you've got something going right through so you can take on longer options. Now this is one of those things that we'd say it's a change. It looks like the metal would flip up because we've got right there, we've got our you're in construction, help me out with the correct term here, but
Hinges.
yeah, there
Be
you go,
it's Yeah,
bracket, whatever people like to call it there. But you've
hinges.
got, thank you. So you've got more space out of the Ford Maverick. I think a lot of people that would actually got pushed out of getting a Maverick because of box size, this could bring them back into the market. So I hope Ford doesn't just patent but I hope it actually comes to market. Dwayne, from your experience with building, with plans and whatnot, what would be your bet for, from conception to having the concrete product in on the market? What do you think the fastest they could get that out?
I would say definitely within 24 months. And the reason why I say that is because it's one thing to draw it, to design it. They can do that relatively quick with all the resources that Ford has. The designers are awesome, right? But then you have to get into real world testing. And then once you get through testing, then there may be some, safety type concerns. There's always that thing that shows up later. How does it weather? They have to get so many miles on the vehicle and they have to drive it and they have to real road test it, right? Because theory is one thing, but road testing is completely another. And so I would say safely 24 months from the time it was first an idea until you see it as an option.
I agree 100% with you. And it goes back what you're saying, makes me think of the Transit when they had finally decided on the door hinge setup that they wanted for that sliding door, the sliding side door on the Transit. They tested it out 400,000 times on
Yeah.
several vehicles, and they wanted they had patented something in the past. They went out, bid to offers, had companies say we'll make it, have it delivered, and then they wanted to test it out. And had it not passed, it's black and white. They said we have to
Yep.
be able to open and close the door 400,000 times. Had it not passed that test, it'd been back to the drawing board. So this design, if when they're testing it out, several 100,000 times of open close, if the seat falls apart or the mid gate underneath the window, if that comes loose, falls apart, whatever it may be, rusts out from friction points, they're going to be back to the drawing board. So best case scenario, this would be the type of thing we could see in 2 years. Now you have, just to show everyone, you have the seat earlier, just to show, not just tell. This is show and tell, folks. Learned it in kindergarten, in grade 1, that you have to show and tell. Here we go. So you've got the seat down here, and you've got the mid gate flipped up that we saw in the last diagram. Now, actual changes we definitely will see on the Ford Maverick. This is pretty exciting. We've had, of course, the Tremor come out, and originally that was just rumors, and now we have the rumor of a potential street version of the Maverick. So by street version, we're talking more in the lines of an ST or an ST line, the way that you see an Edge or an Explorer or several Ford products. When they go ST, they get the ST treatment. They're getting more of that city racer look, or the road racer
Yeah.
look to it. So we could potentially see a Maverick that is lower. Definitely, if it's going with Ford tradition, it means dark mags, no chrome, more of a race look. And I just happen, now this is the wrong tire, but I just happen to have a picture here of a customer that chose these wheels out, this part of our Maverick community now, and they chose these black wheels out. Now these tires, BF Goodrich KO3s, fine. I know, sorry, they're not KO3s, but anyways, fine choice. But that's, of course, an off-road all year round tire. It would have, if it gets the ST treatment, we'd probably be looking at either boosting up the 2-liter turbo or maybe a 2.3-liter, the way we have in the Ford Explorer as the standard engine in the Ranger, and the Maverick would be lower. So that's Lobo, I believe, in Spanish. People in the community who speak Spanish, please help me out, but I think it means wolf in Spanish. So we could be getting a street version of the Maverick, which I think could be pretty darn exciting. Is that something that could interest you?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And then, someone, I think it was Jack Evans, said 17,000 Mavericks were produced in April. Now, is that just because more and more people want a Maverick, or is that because more and more people can afford one over another type vehicle? And so I think that's the question. I think the Maverick's a cool vehicle. I do like it. But yeah, when you start adding some of that difference, that nuances to it from the factory, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely interests me now. And it would definitely interest me then, and it also gives you sort of that head start to modifying it, right? So
Yeah.
it's not just a plain vehicle, but now you can take what Ford's given you as that special option, and you start tricking that out a little bit and make it uniquely yours.
Yeah, no, those are good points. And you hit on something pretty important, and that's the more versatile they can make the Maverick, the more people it can reach out and interest, the better it's going to be the better off Ford's going to be. As it is, Ford has been drawing in the majority of Maverick sales. A little over 60% of Maverick sales are people coming from other brands. And
Nice.
now that they can produce more of these Mavericks, why not go into, early on, it would have been silly. 2 years ago, it would have been silly to come along and say, look, we have more variations of the Maverick because we want to get more people into the Ford Maverick market because it is a needed market. People need a versatile truck that is relatively inexpensive. And of course, the prices on these vehicles have gotten all vehicles everywhere, all the manufacturers, they're out of hand and they're pushing more people out of the market. And in pushing
Sure.
more people out of the market that remains that can actually afford a new vehicle, Ford's got to go out and reach as many of them as possible. So it's great to see you bring up a great point. Ford Maverick production is up. So now is a good time to bring on added variations and greater versatility because the more versatile the truck is, such as let's say with the tailgate closed, if you can get
Yeah.
6.5 feet of well, what would the back seat of a Maverick be? It must be 2.5 to 3 feet. You can
Sure.
get,
At least three from the back of the seat to the back of the
yeah.
front seats. Yeah.
So if you're looking at 7.5 feet of space that you can, for builders, maybe for
Sure.
yourself as a builder, you'll say, you
Yeah.
know what, 10 of my employees are going to have Mavericks because it can, will rough up the back seat, but they're going to put, 4x8s in
Mhm.
there. They're going to put the construction materials. I already know of a few companies that have bought the Maverick and said, you know what, we'll just deal with it. And if it's too long, well, we've got a Super Duty with a trailer and we'll just throw it into the Super Duty or throw it on the Super Duty's trailer. So they really need to, as the
Yeah.
market actually, it's sad. Many people are getting pushed out of the market. And I won't get into my long explanations on how taxation and fines are pushing a lot of the middle class out of the market for a new vehicle. But Ford, for that market that's left, Ford's got to go out and get as many of them as they possibly can.
Yeah, and Johnny, there's parallels to real estate as well. I look at that the Maverick behind you. I think about a local city here. Their entire fleet of city vehicles are leased to Mavericks.
Wow.
They have. I probably, if I'm guessing here, 75 to 100 of them. And they, I mean, they're hybrids, and then they have the cool accessories for the back to hold, hand. So some of them are wastewater, some of them are city inspectors, some of them are zoning. It doesn't matter what department it is. And when I ask them, we deal with them a lot in our business. Oh, they're great. They're like as comfortable as a car, versatile as a small truck. So it meets all that. The parallels in real estate, though, are a lot of people are being priced out of home ownership, and they're being priced out partly of larger groups of piles of cash, hedge funds or whatever, buying that typical house that they're buying is the first time home buyer house, right? So think about the affordability in the car market, but also that regulation, building codes, zoning here in the States is driving the cost up even more. So regulation or red tape or taxes, or, when you're mentioning all that. So I get it. The downward pressure on everyone financially right now is, I think, incredible. I think the Maverick answers a lot of those questions. If you need a car, a Maverick will work. If you need a light, small truck, a Maverick will work. So just think of all the people and look at the pricing. I mean, out of everything on the market right now, it's some of the most affordable for the most versatile, I think.
That's really well said. And Car Questions answered Brandon over there. Don't forget to subscribe to his channel. Bringing up some really great points here. Ford Blue earnings down 60%. Ford Pro sales up 120%. Yeah, Pro sales, the commercial side of sales for Ford used to basically be, for at least for dealers, it's like cost plus $100. And that means usually when the dealer is making essentially nothing, Ford's making essentially nothing. And there's been a change in that. There's been, over from the pandemic to now. Prior to the pandemic, that's the way it was now. And now there's actually a little bit of money, as you can see from, the 120% increase in sales. And also it's an increase in profitability on the commercial side of things. And companies are going to have to rely on those commercial sales more and more as the middle class, unfortunately, gets pushed out of home ownership and new vehicle ownership. It's a
Yeah.
sad reality. I hope things change. I hope this isn't permanent. I think, part of the American dream or Canadian dream is to buy a home, have a family, have vehicle ownership. I remember, my grandfather started from absolutely nothing. Well, on my stepdad's side, the grandfather came from Europe with literally nothing. Had a period where there was, just the grandmother in the home because he got sent off to a camp for, no reason at all other than being born the wrong nationality. But it was tough. And even then, when he got back to working for free on a farm encampment, he was working in a factory. And yes, he eventually made it up to factory foreman, but he was able to, with just back when he was back to working, he provided for the whole family. They had a vehicle and they had a cottage. And now where they lived in Montreal, it's worth several $1 million. And that's wild because that used to be where the very poor immigrants would purchase. So the Canadian and American dream of owning a home and owning a vehicle, it's becoming more and more difficult. So Ford needs to reach out to more and more people, and we need to actually save money where we can. And that brings up to the next point on the Ford Maverick. Changes to come. Well, a little bit of inside information has told me that from the very beginning of not producing the Maverick, from you know creating the Maverick, the whole idea behind the Maverick, the original plan before it was available on dealer lots is that 2025 would be the year that they'd come along with the all-wheel drive hybrid, not a plug-in, but an all-wheel drive hybrid. So I'm still hoping that Ford hasn't had to move aside that project. I still hope they're able to go down that path in that, in a few months, we're going to be finding out, I hope, and I suspect that there'll be an all-wheel drive hybrid Maverick, making it, more versatile and getting into, the realm of possibility for more buyers. With market share shrinking, you got to eat up and take up as much market share as you possibly can. And I think Ford is really well positioned to do that, especially when it comes to hybrids, which is now the popularity of electrics. Now that first adopters are one and done, they're gone, they're done with. Hybrids the way to go. Ford has completely
Yep.
changed. Jim Farley, CEO at Ford, has said we're putting we're cooling off our projects on electric vehicles. We're supposed to have a Gen 2 2025 Lightning as well as the all electric Explorer. And now they're getting pushed back a year and 1 year and 2 years. So projects for the electric side of things getting pushed off. And he said it's to bring forth quicker than expected the hybrid options. So
Sure.
we'll talk about the Ranger later and how it's probably going hybrid pretty soon, as well as the Bronco. But I think I'm certain an all-wheel drive
Yeah.
hybrid Maverick will suit a lot of people. I bet it could be pretty useful for your business.
Well, yeah, it would. I mentioned in the video today, right now, what we need is heavier duty, like for towing skid steers or large trailers with something like that. So the 250, 350s are, but there comes a point to where as we, grow, we need people for warranty work or whatever. The Ford Maverick's going to be the perfect vehicle for that. And by the way, I want to shout out to Brandon over at Car Questions Answered. I watch probably if when I see videos that talk about the pressure on the market from cost and interest rates in the economy. I don't know, Johnny, other than you, I don't know of anyone that does a better job explaining that
I agree.
what's happening in the used car market. And so if you ever want to sort of get the pulse on what's going on in your economy, check out that information. It's great. I have to say that the Maverick is, for me, it is definitely a vehicle. There's some exterminators here, home inspectors, things like that. They're not carrying a tremendous amount of load, but they're driving the heck out of the vehicle. And guess what? The Maverick's good on gas. It's affordable to buy. The
Yeah.
maintenance, so now what's
Better than a Honda
happening.
Civic.
Oh yeah, and so it's the best of every world because this exterminator runs around with this big tank in the back. He's carrying a load. a lot of liquid. Who knows what's in it? But I don't probably want to know. But it's a big tank in the back.
You don't want to
Um,
sniff it. You don't want to drink
no,
it. You should probably stay
just,
10 feet away from it.
yeah, just stay away from it. But they use it, and they have, I don't know, two or three of them. This company, as far as I know I've seen different colors, so I know at least two of them. But there's a lot more companies doing that, and I think as you put pressure on individuals, families, and companies, small businesses, you start to determine what vehicle that they buy and how they have to change their habits and to fit the vehicle that they can buy.
No, a lot of what's going to be going down in the next few years is about changing habits. Some people are going to be pushed that would have bought new are going to be pushed into used. Some people that would have bought used are going to be pushed onto the bus. We've heard it in comments made by politicians. So we know this more. Use your legs or go ride a bicycle. Heck, in my city, they're spending millions of dollars cutting down the sides of roads, important roads that we need, taking lanes out so that they can have little bicycle sidewalks on either side. And then over more than a year, I've only ever seen a bicycle on it once. So not always the most sensible things, not always the best way to spend money, but hey, if government's got to do something with our money. But anywho, let's talk about money. That now this is the second part of this Maverick talk. We've got the XL here starting at 23,815. When you go to build it here, don't be fooled. When you go online to build a vehicle, what you're seeing is the price before transport and handling. And that's just the way it is for all the manufacturers. So there's no point in getting all angry and frustrated and saying, I won't buy a Ford because of it. They're all playing the same game. You know, they're all following the same rules. If you don't like the rules, that's fair. Just don't hate on one company for playing that way. That's just the way they play. Now, if you look at an XLT, you're looking at 26,315, and if you either model $2,000 transport and handling to add on, but either model, let's look. Hybrid used to be the standard engine, but the problem is that roughly 73% of people that order a Maverick, and let's be honest, those are the people getting Mavericks, other than your lucky lottery winner that finds one that just got canceled off a lot and picks it up before the sales team has time to call their own clients that have been waiting. But it used to be a free option, this engine. It was the standard engine, the hybrid. Now, the hybrid's running we'd go from 23,815 to 25,315. So there's an added cost to the hybrid engine. And some people are going to feel that's really, unjust, unfair. I kind of see it as managing the demand in an intelligent way. If you've got 73% of the people building the hybrid, and it's fair if they just can't build that many hybrids. Remember, they need those hybrids also over essentially, they need to some of these batteries to go towards the Ford Escape, some of these batteries to go to different models, future plans. They can only get so many possibly. So this is why to sort of rebalance the demand, because really what they can build is about 50% EcoBoost, 50% hybrid. So Ford's hoping that with making the hybrid a cost option, you'll have those people that, and I see it every day, people that drive 8 to 8,000 kilometers. So we're talking about 3 to 5,000 miles per year. They're like, I have to have a hybrid. And I'm thinking, especially when it's on a vehicle where it's, a $5,000 or $7,000 option, which is almost always the case at other brands. I'm thinking, why do you think you need a hybrid engine? All you're going to do is instead of spending $900 a year on fuel, you're going to spend $600 a year on fuel. You're for a $300 difference yearly, you're willing to spend $5,000 or $7,000 more. Ford traditionally doesn't really charge extra for a hybrid. This is one of those instances where they do. And of course, and I want to get your opinion on this, Dwayne, because I want to know which one you think makes the most sense. But you've got the Lariat. If I can just scroll out there, you've got the Lariat starting at 34,855. If we're on the Canadian side, all of these vehicles would be automatically all-wheel drive, and you still have the same added charge for the hybrid engine. So what do you think is the right model? Oh, do we still have you, Dwayne? Okay, so we'll let Dwayne's internet. Yeah, no worries. I'm assuming it's probably your internet. You're probably having a bit of trouble picking up internet. With no problem. Hope it comes back. But yeah, what do you think is the right, in your opinion, what's the right model? Does it make sense to spend $34,000 on a Lariat? Or is it better to just, equip an XLT with that luxury package to get the heated seats, heated steering wheel? What would make sense for you, my friend?
Vehicle, the XLT, if you can swing it, I would go that way because use some of that more you drive. Obviously, you just said it, with the person that drives 3,000 miles a year is not going to get a return really on their investment. But a company like the home inspector, the bug company I was talking about, um, they they will definitely get a return
Abs-
on that investment of going
yeah,
with that hybrid.
no
I
doubt.
mean, no doubt. Um, yeah, and I think one thing that's interesting when you talk about electric, and this really, I'll probably bring this up later, but I'll just mention of electricity between the time it's and the time it's actually put into a battery, whatever that equation of what's better for you or the environment or whatever. So,
Yeah.
I like how it gives you options.
Yeah,
It's not just you know gas, or it's not just the plug-in. You have options.
yeah, I really I feel the same way. I had an electric truck. I had the Ford F-150 Lightning, and it's irritating when you're like, okay, well, driving down to Florida isn't really an option because I don't feel like having at least 15 stops to make to go through the whole charging process. So I'm a much bigger fan of plug-in or hybrid. Now, I don't think we'll have a plug-in Maverick for 2025. I'd say that's a little later down the road, maybe when we do a full refresh, because we should expect a 2025 mid-model refresh out of the Maverick. So maybe the lights change a little, maybe a little bit of the hood changing. Think of the recent F-150 changes that we saw, where we did get exactly that. On the F-150, we can go check it out on the Tremor model. They changed the lights. They actually removed the LED lights, which is a bit of a debatable topic, whether not everyone's thrilled about that, but they did completely change the grille. The hood stayed the same. So the Ford Maverick, the bumper changed, the fog lights changed. So when we do see the Ford Maverick mid-model refresh coming for 2025, we can expect a lot of the same with a few variations, which is good. If you have a 2024, your trade-in value or your resale value isn't going to tank because the new model is so much different and so much better. We can expect that in about 2 to 3 years, 2 to 4 years down the road. I'd almost expect a plug-in to come in with the whole new Maverick, not just a refresh, but when they do the whole redesign, which usually we're looking at 5 to 8 years as a lifespan for a vehicle over at Ford.
Well,
Now, I think,
I'm looking forward to those small changes.
yeah, Dodge is probably the best brand for that. They've never gone off of the 1960s business model or marketing model of having a new color, at least one new color, and having sort of like a special edition model come out every year, something to get the journalists and the community excited and talking. So I hope Ford does more of that, and when we're talking about possibly a street version of the Ford Maverick, which could be called Lobo, it could be called the Maverick ST. We already have the Tremor, which is great. So we have our off-road model. There's a lot of excitement behind that. If ever this does get the 2.3-liter plug-in option, that's going to be a complete beast when it comes to power because this truck is light. It weighs about 3,700 pounds. And think Ford already has that 2.3-liter on file, on standby, because Europe is about to get their plug-in Ford Ranger. So we'll talk about the Ford Ranger, and well, the 2.3 liter from the Ford Ranger as a plug-in means it can also very well come, well, it will come to the Ford Bronco. It's just a question of whether we're talking about 1 year or a few years. So we're going to get into talking about the Ranger. Dwayne, did I miss anything here, or the community? Please let us know. Am I missing anything when it comes to changes that have been made to the Ford Maverick? That's awfully kind of you to say. So we'll have to stay tuned. Please like and subscribe to the channel, folks. Turn the bell notification on so you don't miss anything, because we will be here to drop the news when we get news about the Ford Maverick and of really any Ford product. And we have been talking about the 2.7 liter V6 coming to the Ford Ranger. I expected it to either be announced for job 2. So job 2, we're talking about vehicles now built in July. So let's get to talking about that. We'll end this episode. I'm just going to timestamp it because I don't have Marie. Dwayne, by the way, Marie says hi. She says hi on behalf of Layla as well. We look forward to presenting our sweet daughter. We can take her to the restaurant and go out with you and have a nice meal, because she is a pretty darn quiet baby. I guess she doesn't get it from me.
Yeah, well, tell them both I said hello, and I can't wait to see them.
Right on. So
Yeah, have to hurry up and get down to the Outer Banks soon.
we gotta show her some wheeling. Now we would like to go back to New Hampshire off rodeo, but Marie announced to me that whether Ford accepts it or not, she doesn't think it's appropriate to go off-roading with a baby in the baby seat. So news to me. I'll let her decide. She's the mom. That's her department, and definitely make her make that call for the family here. So let's get right into the Ranger, get back, have a nice little Ranger talk here. All right. So welcome to Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. We've got Dwayne with us this evening from Driven Wild Outdoors. Check his channel out, subscribe. Dwayne, thank you so much for being here. We're here to talk about Ford Ranger. We're two guys that ordered a Ford Ranger Raptor. So we're going to be talking about the Ford Ranger Raptor. We'll be talking about all the models, the XL, the XLT, the Lariat, and of course, we'll also be talking about changes that have been made, changes that will come, and speculative changes that might come. We'll also be talking about pricing, which one to buy, should you buy now, should you buy later, and the best model to get. We just finished talking about the Maverick, and I'd say, just to conclude, I think any time is a great time to buy a Ford Maverick because the price is excellent. There's a ton of demand for it. I don't see prices going down anytime soon because, well, Ford prices their vehicles with time. Everything gets more expensive, but interest rate, as Dwayne has mentioned during the live of all of this, he's mentioned that interest rates can price you in or out of a vehicle. And Ford drops interest rates when they've got a lot of supply on hand and demand that's lower than actual supply. So when they have to increase demand, that's when they're going to drop the interest rates. We've seen it recently with the Ford F-150, the whole process of the last 3 years. We went from 0% to 7-8% interest on F-150s, now back to 0% interest rate available on the F-150. Now, the Ford Maverick, I don't expect any 0% interest anytime soon because demand is just too hot for that model. Now, the Ford Ranger currently at 8.49%. We will get to talking about whether you should buy now or buy later. And of course, we'll be talking about the best model to get. You almost picked up a Ford Ranger Raptor after waiting for it for a year. Was that a painful process?
It's kind of the wrong time, and our plans have changed. So we ended up not buying it at all. Johnny, I know I'm having internet issues. The I'm on my cell phone. I can't hardwire into the internet here, but off to a new house, a new home.
All right. So sorry that cut in and out a little bit, but I'll fill you in with hopefully what everyone got. Let us know in the comment section if Dwayne, it's just on my end maybe that his internet's cutting in and out. But yeah,
Yes.
he passed on the Ford Ranger, and I think it doesn't mean it's a bad vehicle. Like you say, you passed on it because you already have 5 personal vehicles, and your business
Right.
has the truck. And well, you look at the Ranger Raptor, it's 83,000 Canadian. It's a good handful in the States, and actually dealerships are starting to charge markup on the ones that are available. Now, if you order anything from a dealership, please always get your build sheet signed. Get them to sign an offer sheet, like a lease offer or a purchase offer. Get them to sign it. They're going to ask for your signature to get, COVP, a confirmed order verification process with Ford. They're going to ask for your driver's license if they're ordering properly in a way that you'll actually get the vehicle. But they'll ask for your driver's license. They'll ask you to sign your build sheet, sign a purchase or lease offer, but ask for your copies with their signature of that so you're protected. But just the same, they're not giving away the Ford Ranger Raptor. So whether it's the best buy or not, I'm not so sure anymore now that we can get an XLT with a 2.7-liter engine for, well, 2,250 Canadian. It'll be about that price in US dollars. So let's go check that out right now. So
Hey,
huge price.
Impuzo said Impuzo is wondering if I'm on a flip phone. No, actually, the good news is I'm in one of my a house I built, which is insulated so well that it's hard for me to get. I would have to walk through to the other part of the house. The part of the house I'm in now is hardwired for internet, not Wi-Fi, believe it or not. So that's what happens when you have like 8 inches of wall and spray foam insulation and all that good stuff. It just makes it a little hard on the Wi-Fi.
Well,
But
I'm
yeah,
happy
sorry
you're
about that.
building him well. It's good. No, it's good that you're building him well. It's important not to cut corners in any business, and then you have to go out and find the clientele that understand that or can be made to understand that there's a quality is definitely worth more. If you look at houses built in Europe, certain parts of Europe, they're built more to how you mentioned, instead of just thin little drywall and no insulation in between rooms. You actually have concrete or stone or bricks in between walls of homes. For the Ranger Raptor, I'm convinced this is built well because we've had the 3-liter V6 twin turbo in the Ford Explorer ST as well as the Lincoln Aviator, and it's not an engine nor a transmission that we've seen issues. The amount of issues are unbelievably, they're very, very low. So it's a good, reliable setup. 55,470 US dollars will get you your Ford Ranger Raptor. And it looks like it's one heck of an off-road machine with the Fox shocks, skid plates. It's got the tires, it's got the suspension. But at the end of the day, we're also kind of going through the whole idea of, do we wait maybe 6 months to another year for our family to get a Ford Ranger Raptor? And if we're going to make a logical choice and invest more in our future, in our daughter's future for education and whatnot, retirement, should we really have an 83,000 Canadian Ford Bronco as well as an $83,000 Ford Ranger, or 55,470 without the $2,000 of transport and handling? Do we really want that in the yard? I think at the end of the day, we prefer the Bronco, and it makes a whole lot of sense to have the XLT with a 2.7-liter. Because if we go to, we pick 4x4, the Raptor is automatically 4x4. You can't have it 2x4. In Canada, you can't have any 2x4, meaning rear-wheel drive Ford Rangers. They're all going to be 4x4. But the website has now been updated. Job 2, these vehicles are going to get built in July. For example, my dealership has a few builds of Ford Rangers coming for July production. So that's where we're at for the Ford Ranger. We're talking July production here, meaning it should show up at your dealership in the month of August or the month of September. And I think it makes the most sense to $2,195 gets you that fantastic 2.7 liter engine. We've loved our 2.7 liter V6 twin turbo in our Broncos. We feel there's so much pedal, and it's not like some companies, I won't name any
Right.
names, but I mean like Chevrolet, you press the pedal down, and the first 2 inches are so impressive. You get that first 2 inches in, and you're like, wow, this is incredible. But then after that, it's kind of lost in space. You're like, nothing's going on here. Chev, did you
Yeah.
forget? What happened to the motor? What's going on?
Hey,
So I used to work for a town, and we had Ford products, Dodge products, and Chev products. And no matter what Chev or GM product I got into, that's always what I noticed. It was the most impressive for the first 2 inches. You thought it was so much better than any other truck on the market. And after that, you're like, what happened? Is that all you got, bro? Is 2 inches
yeah.
all you got? And it was done. It was one and done.
Yeah, they're just trying to sell you on that, by the way. Hey, can you hear me any better now? Am the
It's
signal coming in?
It's fantastic. I actually have
Okay.
to put a booster in my office down here. I've
Yeah.
got a booster right beneath me to
Well,
reboost the internet because I'm also without wired connection at the moment.
well, tell M Peugeot that I coiled the string up and put the cans away, and now I'm using technology again. I just I didn't want to move my phone around and do all that, but I just disconnected from Wi-Fi, so I'm on cell now. Let's see if that does better.
Fantastic.
Um, so listen, when you're looking at the Ranger, part of the reason why the Ranger's wider, you did a video where you compared your, I think it was your Bronco to a Ranger that you had. Uh,
Yeah,
and you were really comparing how wide the new Ranger is compared to the Bronco, or it's almost equal to it.
yeah,
So it's so much wider than the old one. Part of that is induction. They need a bigger space for the 2.7 when it does come out, but right now in the Ranger Raptor for the 3.0, they need a lot more cooling with that. And part of it was design, I'm sure, as well. But I think that what Ford did with the Ranger, definitely by increasing it, is going in size, physical size. It's going to now make it easier to manufacture at map, obviously with the Bronco, but it's going to appeal to more people. What do you think?
yeah. I agree. I think it will be easier to produce because it seemed like the factory over the Michigan factory. It seemed how it worked is they produce a bunch of Broncos, and then it's almost seemed like it was 1 month Broncos, 1 month Ranger, but
Right.
never a decent month for both. So I think there was maybe a bit of added complexity there. Having them, basically the same width, I think should help. I expect really good Ford Ranger and Ford Bronco production this year. I know Ford Bronco production is high enough, and at such a point now that they're starting to pile up on lots that I've covered on
Right.
videos lately. But yes, the Ford Bronco Wild Track. So we have the second biggest Bronco. It's not a Raptor, but the Wild Track Bronco with a Ranger, and the Ranger was holding its own, and it was an XLT. And what's really impressive? Photos don't do it justice, but the fenders on this Raptor, and you saw yours in your potential Raptor in person. I kept
Yep.
walking around this. It was this was around for a few sunny days, so it gave me an excuse to go outside. But
Right.
the Ranger Raptor is massive. These fenders really pop out, and just
They do.
based on presence and look, I almost feel like it's worth the extra. What is it, 20 or 30? Uh,
30.
$25,000.
Yeah.
It's almost worth it just for the presence, but nothing to take away from an XLT. It's got huge presence, and I do think, to answer your question finally and properly, I really do think it's going to appeal to
Yeah.
more people. Absolutely.
Well, and I think it's going to open it up, like I said, to more, with the V6, there's going to be more towing capacity. I know the towing capacity on the Ranger Raptor is less than it's going to be on the 2.7, what, XLT or something. But I'm almost wondering if the Tremor is going to be a better value than the Ranger. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I think you've spot on. If you're looking for an off-road machine, you've got one fantastic option, and that's to wait out the Tremor. Or the other great option is to take your Ranger, option it with for $2,135, the 2.7 liter. Take the FX4 package, and just, I want to plug Tim Bartz. He said this at Long MacArthur Ford. He said this just the other evening, and I couldn't agree with him more. Fantastic show, folks. Don't forget to subscribe to Tim Bartz over at Long MacArthur Ford. But he made a great point, and I agree with him completely. And I've been debating this for the last 6, 7, 8 months. I'm like, should I just take an XLT FX4 throw on skid plates, and put on bigger tires. And essentially, I have kind of a Raptor. The engine's more than enough. Where I'll really be kind of losing out is the Fox suspension on the Raptor is fantastic. And I can attest to that. Having a 2023 Ford Bronco Wildtrak, I have Fox suspension, had a Ford F-150 Raptor with Fox suspension, and it's unbeatable when it comes to taking bumps, taking jumps, or
Yeah.
driving into, just any road conditions, any off-road conditions. It's really hard to beat. I've never had such an enjoyable, comfortable driving experience.
Yeah, and don't forget, that has the watch linkage on it, versus the panhard bar on the Bronco Raptor. The Ranger Raptor has a watch linkage on the back, and it really helps it with stability. They've moved the shocks to the outside of the frame, which has given it more stability versus tucked up on the inside. They've done a lot across the board with the new Ranger. But I'm wondering too, if do you need the 406 horsepower unless you're out at Moab or somewhere out west? Or is that torque number really of the 2.7 going to give you that good solid torque number? Is that what you need, say, for wheeling here on the East Coast or in most parts of the country, where it's not the high
Absolutely.
speed, but it's that ability to turn a shaft, the wheels, the axle, and that's done by torque, not horsepower.
And absolutely, I agree with you 100%. And Peugeot's mentioning that the rear suspension on the Ranger Raptor is totally different and very much a huge difference between the regular Ranger and the Ranger Raptor. I have to agree with you. My F-150 Raptor, the suspension was just, I really much prefer it over a regular F-150, but I also really like the Tremor F-150. And I've had people who are very much into wanting comfort. They try out a Dodge Ram, a Ram Laramie edition, and they're like, wow, this is the comfort I'm looking for. But then they remember how everyone talks about how the bed, you put weight in the bed and the bumper goes towards the ground. Um,
Yeah.
and they want that Ford reliability. Ram has traditionally had a good number of issues when it comes to transmission, differential, and even frames bending. Last year, we picked up two that had bent frames where the bottom of the cab had a big space and the top of the cab between the cabin and the box
Wow.
had a little space. And that means the frame is finished. We couldn't resell it that way, and we had to, we had to invest in essentially a whole new frame. So Ram has their issues. Every manufacturer does, but for me, those are issues that make it a no-go. Whereas I've really loved I have had people go from the Laramie, they love it. They're saying, I think it's going to be a Laramie. I'll try driving again the F-150. And they want to try the Lariat again. And I'm like, hey, you've already tried the Lariat. You can, but to unlock that achievement, you first need to trust me and drive a Tremor. And 100% of the time, I've done this many times, 100% of the time, the people come back from test driving the Tremor going, wow, I
Yeah.
have top of the line quality plus
Right.
a hardworking, reliable, powerful truck that doesn't drink drink fuel the way someone who's now retired and can drink all day can drink alcohol and still be
Yeah.
coherent and walk around. So Ford's good for that. We don't have vehicles that are alcoholics, you could say.
Yeah, and let me tell you that I'm dropping and I don't want to plug my channel, but I'm
Please do.
dropping a video this week with it talks about oil again, so it's trigger warning. That's why I need to put on the thumbnail, trigger warning. It's not just about opinions. This is science based information about oil, and one of the biggest things we don't contribute to is fluid or gas fuel contamination to the oil. Cars that historically use more gas, they run richer. Sometimes tunes can affect this, but if you think about some of those vehicles out there, they're the same ones that probably need oil changes even more. But I'm thinking about Broncos and the 2.7, and now Rangers with the 2.7 coming up whenever we get them, and all of the potentials that's available with the 2.7. Uh, Destination Bigfoot Bronco just joined you, waving there in the chat. So hello. He actually has a Bronco with a 2.7 that is lifted. I mean, it's massive. It's lifted. Maybe he can tell us what size tires he has, but I mean, the thing is huge. And I don't think performance is an issue for him. So the 2.7 is a solid engine for that wheeling you want to do.
And Peugeot brings up two really great points. The 2.7 liter, you can tune it and get 400 horsepower and even more torque. And Destination, and Peugeot's also mentioning that there's other reasons to get a Ranger Raptor, its uniqueness,
Sure.
And that's probably why you and I were looking at it and have ordered them. We like the uniqueness, we like the comfort and the look of the interior. It's got the Ranger Raptor has an incredible interior. And when originally over the computer, I was like, okay, so it looks a little bit better than an XLT. But in person, I mean, it looks way better than a Ranger XLT. But I think in order for me personally, for me to be able to keep my Bronco Wild Track, which I think I prefer because I've got the versatility. I can go wheeling, I can put the top down. It's kind of a do everything, go anywhere vehicle, except for its towing capacity, which we'll talk about in the last episode of tonight's live. Really hoping towing capacity goes up on the Bronco. But the more off-road you make a vehicle, the less you can haul and tow. And the F-150 Raptor is a great example of that. There was some years where the F-150 Raptor could only tow, I think it was 5,500 pounds, and had a much lower hauling payload rating. For example, the Tremor has a payload rating in the 1,500 pounds, whereas the payload rating on your regular Super Crew 4x4 F-150 is in the 1,800 pound range. And some F-150s last year, 2023, get one if this is what you need. But the heavy payload package on the F-150 is gone for 2024. I don't see it coming back, and it can take roughly about, give or take, 2,200 pounds. Originally we could get it on the Lariat, and then we could get it on the XLT. That went away. Both went away with time, one after the other. And now we won't be able to get on the XL anymore. So if you do need kind of the capability of an F-250 when it comes to payload, that 250 diesel runs about 1,800 pounds. If it's, the 9,900 pound PNBV, which in my area is kind of needed to not get annoyed by the government constantly. So everyone wants that under 10,000 pound gross vehicle weight rating. Sorry, GVWR. I was in PN. The initials are it's a French thing. So sorry about that. But yeah, last year to get your heavy payload package. But you make a great point. Payload changes when you have a softer suspension. So that's another great reason to get a Ranger Raptor. But I think when you brought up the point, like, hey, what about the Tremor? The Tremor is probably your best in between option, or you can go down the road of modifying an XLT. Now, just looking at pricing on the 4, and then I want to hear your opinion on what would be sort of your dream Raptor versus the Dream Ranger versus what makes the most sense. So we'll cover that in just a moment. But for pricing, if you go down the road of an XLT 4x4 with the 2.7 liter, the pricing is pretty interesting. If you pay that on 5 years, you put, let's say, $4,289 down, you're at $765 per month US. If you don't put any money down, you're looking at $850 per month. And if you kick it up to 72 months, you're at $732. But here's the catch. Ford Ranger interest, at least in Canada right now, it's, going to play around 8%. And let's check out the interest we've got here. We're looking at 72-month term at 7% interest. If you lease it, there's no options right now for leasing, but I'd say when it is leasable, we're going to be looking at about 8%, 7 to 8% if you're going to be purchasing this. That, I'd say, if you wait. Now, of course, the excitement often is getting the vehicle when it's fresh on the market. But if you wait for a Ranger long enough, once there's actually available ones on the lot and not this high demand for the Ranger, you might have to wait a year, but you will get a better interest rate on a Ranger if you wait. You'll get a better deal, folks. That you'll miss out on the excitement of having the new vehicle that people are going to say, hey, is that the new Ranger? You're going to miss out on that process.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back. Hey, so let me tell you, the 4-foot wide plywood that can fit in the bed of a Ranger is a game changer for contractors, right? So,
Great
I mean, I
point.
know it's a first world problem, but if you always thought about before, sheetrock, drywall, or many other things, that 4-foot wide actually now makes the Ranger much more appealing to contractors. Also, as the towing capacity has gone up. So, if you mentioned the perfect Ranger, the perfect one would have a longer bed,
Yeah,
right? Offer an
that's right.
extended bed, and now it becomes the perfect work truck, because now we're dealing with the fuel economy versus the larger one. We can tow just about whatever we need to tow at 7,000 pounds. And if we had a bed that was 4 feet longer, I mean, it would look kind of odd, but it would be the perfect work truck.
Those are some excellent points. I'm glad that Ford didn't have their towing go down, even though this is 2 inches wider, 2 inches longer. They still have the same great, because towing 7,500 pounds is it's pretty darn good. It's
Yeah.
gonna meet the criteria of most contractors if they're honest about what they're actually pulling. Often have contractors, say, "Oh, I want the heavy payload package," but when I ask them how much they tow, they say, "Well, usually 4 to 6,000 pounds." Like, well, I'm thinking to myself, a Ranger would work.
Right.
Any engine option on any truck would work, but they want they're always in that just in case scenario.
Yeah.
I think this vehicle could really benefit from what might be coming to the Ford Maverick, the mid gate,
Right.
the capability of putting below the window, the metal beneath the window, having the box and the bed metal come down, the cabin metal, so you can actually put things through the back seat. So yeah, the perfect Ranger doesn't exist.
It-
You only have the four-door Super Crew option.
right.
But if you're looking at an XL at 36,315, if that's what you can afford, and you're looking at that or a used vehicle that's 4 or 5 years old to save 10,000, I'd go with the new vehicle, full warranty, less repairs, less maintenance. People usually think about the price here and now, but it's really about the price here later to own your whole ownership experience and resale value. And Ford Rangers have excellent resale value. It's one of the reasons why I would highly recommend a Ford Ranger, but I don't know if I get one right now unless you have a good portion of your the amount to put down cash. And so that amount, if you're looking at an XL, you're looking at 36,315 if you take it 4x4. You save not quite $3,000 if you take it 4x2, but your resale value won't be nearly as good as if you get the 4x4. Speaking from experience, see it on a weekly basis, folks. The XLT, 39,595, 4x4. That's what I would recommend, even if you only need a 2x4. It's all about that resale value. You've got the
Right.
Lariat at 47,115 and the Raptor at 55,470. And yes, I think for me, the best value and the one sort of my dream Ranger, so that I can also have a secondary vehicle that's really amazing, like the Ford Bronco, would probably be Tremor, but in XLT trim, because Tremors always seem to come and you can have like your full leather. It's like Lariat plus Tremor
Right.
conversion, and you
Yep.
can have your XLT Tremor conversion. So if we're looking at a $6,000 option to go Tremor, and if it comes right out the bat with a 2.7 liter, that would be a steal of a deal. If not, XLT 2.7 liter, give it a little lift, a 2 inch leveling in the front, throw on bigger tires, and I think we've got something extremely interesting there. Not to take away from the Ranger Raptor, if you have the money, I've seen it in person and I want it, but I
Yeah.
also want to keep my Bronco. You gotta
Yeah.
set limits at a certain point. I've got for the channel, I want to kind of fix up and go through the whole ownership experience of having two Porsche 911s, and I won't have that money to do any of that if I've got two expensive vehicles on payment in the yard.
Yeah, and that's the reality of it all too. Like I said, yeah, how many vehicles do you have to have or want to have? Of course, we all want whatever, but so we got to keep things. Johnny, and I don't want to jump over because you're going to do the Bronco stuff later, but think about the Bronco. What about the Oats? The Oats was sort of that name we heard about the Bronco, but we haven't heard it again. And if you think about, I know it's kind of funny, but Hall and Oates, the band, right?
Yeah,
I wonder, like, wouldn't it be cool to make the Bronco trim that is still an off-road vehicle, but not as capable as, say, a Badlands, a Wild Track, or a Raptor? However, it would have a different spring ratio package so that you could tow more. Because that's the ability with the Bronco is the suspension. You were mentioning that earlier. What if they could do a
absolutely.
package in there to get to 7,000 towing? That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I know. I like that you actually thought of what they could call it, or whether it's they couldn't use the Eddie Bauer name because that always meant added luxury and a
Sure.
whole lot of beige everywhere. But they could definitely use, and I kind of like, the whole idea that you've got there, sort of like but it have to be, instead of soft rock, it need to be hard rock, since it can, tow more. So they'd
Yeah,
have to find a hard rock artist, maybe some 80s Bon Jovi hair metal, to name it after. But yeah, if they play around with the suspension, they
yeah,
definitely could have a Bronco that tows more, that just wouldn't be nearly as off-road worthy when it comes to whether it's rock climbing or driving through the driving at high speeds over, really bumpy terrain. But
right.
I think that would definitely be more versatile. They'd reach more of a clientele, but maybe, and we'll get to there in a minute, but maybe the solution is just to come out with a pickup truck version of the Bronco. Because,
Yeah.
you know, why not? Why not?
It's the perfect mix, and I don't think at map it would be that hard to manufacture it because it's sort of the Bronco Ranger mix.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it works.
Hey, let's hope that the Ford Ranger and Ford Bronco are going to be like teenagers. If you
Yeah.
put them in the same room, you're going to end up with grandkids. So, and let's hope the grandkid is Bronco pickup truck. A lot of us,
Yeah, there
for
you go.
us, it'd be the perfect solution. We get everything that we need in one, as long as we can take. We want the sun. We want the hauling from when we do house
Right.
projects. I think a lot of people want more versatility, because the days of having two new vehicles or three new vehicles in the
Right.
yard are becoming less and less possible for more and more people, even though we used to live in a society where, only one person out of the couple worked and the other person focused on, raising the children right and making sure that the kids had good values, that they're more stoic, they're more, not so darn sensitive, and, not so darn sensitive, but
Hey, hey,
they
hey, they needed
grew
more
up.
people to tax. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
precisely. I
So,
couldn't
yeah,
agree with you more. Big scam to get more people to tax, to get
that's,
more money in. But if they just controlled inflation,
yeah,
the money would be worth more.
right.
So let's, we've covered, I think, best model to get. I'm voting, if you can afford a Raptor, but it makes more sense to get something a little less, take the Tremor. If you can afford an XL, if that makes a lot of sense to you, well, maybe get the little extra appeal when it comes to looks and go with an XLT. You can't get the 2.7 liter on the XL, but you can get it on XL. And for me, a 2.7 liter V6 is a must have on the Ford Ranger. The 2.3 liter isn't bad in any way. It tows, it
Yeah.
works, but I love everything about the 2.7, the instant torque, the sound of the engine. I just love a good, powerful V6 with turbos. One of
Yeah.
the reasons that we always, didn't got really close to buying a Jeep, because we like the looks, even though it has that front nose going in the way the 23 Ranger did, that we do not like. We're not fans of, neither Matty or I are fans of the 2023 Ranger look. Matty really loves the look of the new Ranger. She thinks it's a 10 out of 10 success, one of the best designs on the market, but there, in no way would she will not be happy if I think she'll cry if I trade in the Bronco for a Ranger, because at the end of the day, for her, the Ford Ranger is a truck, and the Bronco is like this magical. It's a magical machine. It's a unicorn
Yeah.
on the market. That was half French, half English. The word I was trying to pull out there, I
Yeah.
guess.
You created a word. Also, the Bronco has more of a community attached to it than say a truck.
Yeah,
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of truck clubs and things like that, but let's face it. There are when you get down to it, the cruises on the beach. It's been a long time since I've seen a lot of pickup trucks cruising together on the beach as a club, but Jeeps or Broncos, yes, you see it all the time, right? There's
the
more of
trucks
that.
go, just not together.
Sure, it's that culture that
Yeah,
kind of goes with that special vehicle. So if you're looking for that whole relationship side of things and the fun after just driving it to do what you need to do with it, I think the Bronco is the winner over the two. However, speaking about the Ranger, I would go with the Tremor, probably for cost and in the ability for what it is.
yeah. And the cool factor. I don't need everyone looking at my vehicle. But I certainly do like it that if they see it, like, I like to be a good, kind of ambassador, you could say,
Sure.
to Ford. And whether it's Ford or whether, whatever brand I have in the yard, I want it to be as clean as possible for it to run, be as well maintained as possible. I like to be a good, I like to keep my things clean and looking good. It's not so much about getting the eyes on me, but it's more about, just pride in my things. And I think the Tremor is something that I could really be proud of. And I think the XLT 2.7 liter is like one of those, look at this smart, I could justify it to Maddie. It's like, look at this smart decision I made. I wanted a Raptor. The Ranger Raptor is the dream option, but then the reality is that there is added cost to it. And the price on the XLT 2.7 liter, I don't think you're getting anything like that on the market. I love that V6, and we've never bought a Jeep because their six-cylinder is really flat and boring. It starts to get interesting at 5,000 RPM. And honestly, it's the one thing that bothers me with the two Porsche 911s we've got in the yard. They're not the new ones that are all turboed.
Mhm.
All the not new 911s are turboed, and they're just, they've got a lot of pedal instantly. Those that generation, the 996 generation and the generation after, prior to putting a turbo on the V6, you put down the pedal and you're really getting that, kind of this is cool factor at 5,000 RPM. It's always nice to be able to have fun without being a criminal. So another point to the 2.7 liter, the 2.3 liter is great. It accelerates very, very well. It's just the 2.7 liter makes you feel great instantly. It's got that instant torque to kick you in your seat, make a bunch of noise, and take off.
And the power band is very broad on it, so it carries that feeling further through the RPMs than some engines, which it peaks early and then drops off, or it's lagging, like you mentioned earlier in some of the GM products. There's a little bit of an
Yeah.
instant gratification, and then the reality that you didn't buy a 2.7.
I feel like the GM trucks, if they how they're set up, it's kind of like a sugar high. When you have sugar, you have energy for 2 minutes, and then there's this crash that
Crash.
people don't
Yeah.
realize. They just think, "Oh, I'm tired again. I need more sugar." No, the sugar is the problem. You're having the crash. You're feeling tired more than you were before because it's only worth 2 minutes. Just like the 2 inches of pedal that are super impressive on those GM and Chevs.
Well,
So I'll have to test drive one again to see if they've changed that up. But that was certainly the across the board feeling that I've gotten in the past. And also when I pass them, kind of not racing, let's say, generally it's like this, oh, this is going to go poorly for me for like the first little bit. And then it's like, oh no, this is actually going quite well. So talking about things going quite well, let's get talking about the Ford Bronco. I think it's time. I know I think I'm pretty certain you're ready to talk Ford Bronco. You're an expert when it comes to this. You've got two at home right now.
I love the Bronco. Yeah, it's interesting, and they're changing it just enough to keep you interested and maybe want to trade one in one day. But we'll see.
Now, to wrap up the Ranger show, we do just want to point out there is an F-150 you can barely see behind this Ranger. So imagine just a 2-inch leveling kit on this Ranger and a bigger tire. It would have just about as much presence and maybe more wow factor than your regular F-150. Now, of course, the F-150 Tremor, I love them. I think they're a fantastic deal. I think it's wrong to call them, the best expression is like a baby Raptor, but I'd say, little brother or less steroided out version of the Raptor would be the Tremor, and it's just a fantastic, comfortable ride. So I'm really convinced that the Tremor Ranger is going to be just an incredible product to get, very much worth it. And yes, the Ranger Raptor is very impressive. I had photos of the interior, very impressive, and I thought the exterior wouldn't be nearly as impressive, but when I saw it in person, I was like, wow, these fenders really are big. This is special. Even my father was walking around it, and he's like, he usually isn't a pickup truck fan at all, and he's like, don't get a pickup, get a Mustang.
Yeah.
Don't get it. He's a huge Mustang fan. He's got a couple, but he's like, wow, you should buy this. And I was like, what? You're telling me to buy a truck? He's like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is really impressive. This is got a lot of look to it.
Yeah, Ford has really done well with with the Maverick and the Ranger, both different segments. They've really hit it out of the park with both, I think. So definitely a good job on the design side of things. That's an expensive looking driveway there.
Well, the 996, because they can be a complete catastrophe. how you say, a timed grenade. You can get them for incredible prices. It's wild how a generation before you're looking at 100 to 180,000. The generation after you're looking mostly in good condition,
Hey,
70 to 100,000, and then these are like a third of the price.
I want to tell you, when you were driving the red one home, I like went and got popcorn because I was like, is it going to make it? Are the brakes going to make it? You know, the rust on the brakes and the temperature and you couldn't get the hood open. It's like, oh, geez, man, I got the popcorn for that ride home.
Well, thank you very much. I'll be finishing up. I've got about another 4 episodes filmed to conclude how we actually made it home. But I was sweating, even though it wasn't hot in the vehicle. I was sweating. It was a stressful situation, and it still is. Every day that I drive the vehicle, I'm potentially going out for a $25,000 ride. There's a way to resolve all that, but it costs a good amount of money. And I've got the estimate bill from the repair, from the mechanic shop. So I know if I put all the money that I need to put into it to, drive stress free, the full out bill is 7,000. And I might try to look at, not doing it all,
Yeah.
roll the dice. But if you're removing the common numbers 6, 7, and 8 from a 2 die dice roll, you're removing the high probability rolls, and I just have to hope I won't get snake eyes. So we'll talk about that in thank you for catching the Porsche episode. Now moving right into the Bronco episode here at time putting in down the mark, because I'm going to break this up. So glad we've got your internet back, because I need to hear from you, Dwayne. You're a source, a well of knowledge, but you're also a very interesting guy. You're not just someone who's really smart. You've got a great personality to go with it. Great storyteller. I could bring the popcorn when we go to dinner after wheeling. I feel like I should bring the popcorn or a pen and notepad, and learn your life path. So, by the way, folks, Dwayne has a book out, Driven. Marie's read the whole thing. I can't comment yet because I'm not done, so it'd be inappropriate for me to review. But Marie's review is that it is an excellent book. She was entertained, but also it was interesting. It kept her reading, but she also learned, and it was sort of something like she could say, "Well, I need to apply this into my life. I need that thing in my life that drives me, that motivates." So I look forward to finishing up the book.
Well, thank you for the kind words. Like, once again, I appreciate that. And yeah, I wrote Driven because I didn't have, if I went back and talked to my 21-year-old self, what would I say? It's through the scope of the book Driven, right? Having motivation's great. It gets you through these motivational spasms in life, but drive is the ability to use knowledge to constantly gain with discipline the what you want out of life, right? So we don't go from these inspirational moments and then we're back to burnout, because burnout comes from a lack of knowledge. You know what I mean? It's just, so when you up your skill and you apply it through discipline, suddenly now you have something called drive, and that doesn't go away. Even when you're in a valley, peaks and valleys,
Yeah.
you're driving through a valley. I think with what's happened to me in the last few months, I'm sort of in a valley, but you're always hungry when you're climbing the mountain versus at the top of the mountain. So think about that for the inspirational 5 seconds of the show, Johnny. But let's talk Broncos.
I like that, and remind everyone you always have to look at when you get to the top of a peak, take a moment to reflect, appreciate, and find the next peak that you need to go
Yep.
conquer, and figure out what you need to do to get to that peak. Because it's not just about having dreams. Dreams without goals and a plan are they're not going to get you anywhere. Just having a dream of, I want an incredible car. You got to build a plan to how you're going to get there. So yeah, we'll get right into the real show right now. So welcome to the channel, folks. I'm Johnny from Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. I've got Dwayne, but with me here from Driven Wild Outdoors. I really do hope, and I ask that you check his channel out, subscribe. He's a well of knowledge, and he's here to really come and bless our show with some of this knowledge that he's got in regards to the Ford Broncos. Family currently has 2, right? You
Yes.
didn't
Yeah.
buy a third behind my back and forgot to call me and let me
No,
know?
no, 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 not yet, not yet. We have a 21 Badlands and a 22 Badlands. Yep.
Fantastic. And here on the channel, we've had two 2021 Ford Broncos, and we're also now on to our third Bronco. So one Bronco for the family. We used to have one each, and we got a wild track because it's actually just it took us a while to figure out the right equipment. I was too cheap on my first Bronco, didn't have heated seats, so one of the two weren't
Yeah.
happy. So we figured out here, but we're here tonight to talk to you about all the changes that have
Yep.
been made to the Ford Bronco. We're here to talk to you also about pricing on the 2024 Bronco versus pricing on the 2023. And, maybe you should get a used Bronco instead. Maybe that's the best buy, folks. Then we're going to be talking about whether you should buy right now or later. And we're going to be talking about the best model to get. Of course, there's variables behind that. Depends who you are, what you can afford, but we'll talk about that. Sometimes it's worth spending a little bit more, and sometimes it makes sense, even if you have the budget, to spend less. If you have the budget, for example, for a Ford F-150 Raptor, I don't think it's a bad idea at all to save tens of thousands of dollars and get an F-150 Tremor. And I think Dwayne and I both concluded that if you're looking at a Ranger, a Tremor is a fantastic option, or maybe upping if you're looking at an XL, paying the little bit extra to get an XLT with a 2.7 liter, we think is a very smart move. So you can catch our episode on the Ford Ranger. Glad you're here for the Ford Bronco talk. Now, Dwayne, tell us a little bit about your Broncos before we get to talking about all these Broncos piling up on lots and what that means for price and whether that means you should buy now or later. How do you feel about your Broncos? What's your experience been like?
Well, so it all started when, Ford announced it was coming back. They had a nice show on the internet and I think a couple TV channels. And was it July 13th, 2020? So I reserved two. And the funny thing was, my wife was saying, we don't know if we're going to like it. You're reserving two. And so January rolls around to 21. You could actually turn that reservation to an order. So we ordered both Badlands. That's when I looked at the trim, what was available is what I wanted. And they both were hard tops. And so as we went throughout the year, in April, I got to experience a ride along with professional drivers in the new pre-production Broncos. And I called my wife. This was at Townsend, Tennessee. And I called my wife and said, "You're going to love it. We went airborne." She said, "What?" It's like, well, when you catch an air on the trail moving, it it'll leave the ground. I mean, it's just the way it is. And I told her I said, you're not going to believe it, but this vehicle is awesome. Not only does it look cool, but it rode really well on the road and it was really capable off road. And so as the year goes on, they had the top issue, the manufacturing issue with the hard top. I converted my 21 Badlands to a soft top. A week later, got a build date, and in September of 21, received the Area 51 21 Badlands. And I love it. It's been a great vehicle. It's probably I've had the most fun with it out of any vehicle ever, including a Mustang. Um, but I really do like it, and now it's to the age and the mileage that I feel comfortable modifying it, bolting a bunch of stuff on, and changing its look.
I look forward to seeing that on your channel,
So me
and I hope that the community here will be catching that on your channel because here we do really like modified Broncos. We also like resale value, and that's why our first two, we didn't do a ton. We weren't doing major modifications. We are just kind of adding accessories that we can take out once we sell it, take it out and put it into the next one. Except for when we paid $500 or $600 for some 70s styled striping that Maddie gave me such a hard time with that she eventually took them off. And you can catch that over on our Facebook, Johnny's Car Care and Reviews, or our Instagram at Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. But we've had a great experience with, we can really relate to your experience. We took our Badlands Bronco off-roading. Really love how the Badlands Bronco has that Sasquatch suspension, even if you don't take the Sasquatch package. So that's sort of a great off-road model right there with the stabilizer bar disconnect. And we're in a farm field and we're just catching air. And often you're in the air because the weight, even if on the outside it looks like your tires are still, well, even if your tires are still making some contact, if the weight of the vehicle is in the air, there's that moment of being airborne, which
right.
is a pretty great feeling. But no, we really got the wheels completely off the ground, and we were worried, but when we landed, we're like, okay, what's going to happen? Are the air, are we going to have a Ram situation here where the airbags, is
Airbags
this,
go off.
yeah, is this a TRX
Yeah.
Ram where the airbags will go off, even though, and that is one heck of an expensive machine. But no, we hit down and we thought, I was worried, Marie. I was thinking when we're in there, I'm like, oh God, I hope her seatbelt will lock so she doesn't eat dash. And then I was also thinking when we landed, I was like, oh my goodness, I hope the airbags don't go, but we never bottomed out. The suspension, especially when we're talking about that Sasquatch suspension, really is made. I'm not telling people to go get 10 feet into the air with it or
No,
anything,
don't do
but if you
that.
get a little bit of air, you're not gonna, a little bit of wheels no longer making contact or just the body of the entire weight being airborne, you're not gonna ruin the vehicle unless you land at the wrong angle, of course.
Yep.
I know, wonderful, wonderful experience. We've gone to the Bronco off rodeo in New Hampshire twice. Hope to get back there this summer. Going to looking into pricing because, of course, you get to go one person for free essentially when you buy one. We're not sure. We love too much our current wild track, even if we're locked in at
Get it.
6.99% interest and current interest is at 0.99. We'll tell you why in this video, why interest rates are so low. But first, let's talk about changes made. So changes, Ford's been working, Webasto has been working hard to improve the hardtop, but we're still hearing customers less, definitely less, but in the community. We haven't had customers with hardtop issues other than earlier on, but in the community, there's people saying they have a 2023 and have hardtop issues. I'm hoping for 2024, we see no issues. I know my 23 Wild Track, the soft top, has been very good to us. It's a little quieter, it's a little heavier though, but it is quieter. So that's one of the big improvements that have been made.
Yeah, and I think Johnny, one of the biggest things is I'm looking. Sorry, I'm actually on Ford's website right now trying to get some updates on something. The Big Ben, 4-door Big Ben starts at right
Yeah.
around 40,000 US, 40,000, and we go all the way up to the Bronco Raptor starting at 90,000. And Peugeot had he had a very good comment earlier. He said, "Well, inflation's really taking its toll." I remember when the Raptor came out, the starting price was 76,000 and some change,
Mm.
and now it's 90,000. Now, of course, they've added some stuff and got rid of stuff, but most of that, I think, is inflation, right? Um,
Yeah.
and it's more expensive for them to put vehicles together now. So
Inflation and demand. The demand's been
sure,
wild
yeah,
for
and
the,
they're going to spread the
price.
profit or make profit on it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, at the end of the day, you got to pay for your electric business that's being forced on all automobile manufacturers. But yeah, Raptor right here, if people want to pick that up on the screen, $90,035. Huge price increase from where we originally were. Then we go over to the Heritage Limited Edition, which is going to be ending. This is the last year. If you're into the Heritage Limited, it's your last year to get one. You're at 69,685. If you go over to the Wild Track, you're at 60,225. And you can get the Wild Track two-door. You've got the Everglades, which is only going to come four-door. I remember back when two-door was an option that saved you a lot of money. It was Canadian $5,000 or $6,000. Now you look at the Wild Track here at 60,225. We go four-door, it's at 60,765. So not next to no difference. It's $500. So it shows that's also a reflection of what, Ford wanting to have more build simplicity. It's all about cost. They want to have build simplicity. They want people to want the four-door because previously I think there was more demand for the two-door based on pricing. It's just price-wise, people said, you know what, like, and Peugeot mentioned he got his two-door 2.7 liter OBX for, I think he said 40 some $1,000. And now, like he mentioned, you can't get a two-door Outer Banks. It's four-door only. And now there's no longer any base models, so that's a major change. However, the models have gotten, you could say, in my opinion, better, but not everyone's going to agree with me there. You look at the Big Ben starting at 39,630 for a two-door. next to no price difference if we go up to a four-door, 40,370. But the Big Ben now is finally something that I actually find is an attractive option because it comes standard with a 12-inch touchscreen, comes standard with the rubberized, washed out floors, and it comes standard like they all do, essentially, except some come standard with leather, like the Wild Track, but they all have as a minimum the marine grade vinyl, which originally I was thinking black diamond, really liked it. I was actually originally thinking base, but then I kind of kept talking myself into higher and higher models and ended up taking a Badlands with no options, no keyless entry, which is pretty rough in Canada's cold winters, no heated seats because I wanted the marine grade vinyl and I also wanted the off-road capability, which the Badlands was a ton of fun climbing things, going down steep slopes, doing wild donuts, and taking, jumps and driving across at high speeds, really high speeds, some bumpy back roads that would have taken some vehicles right off the road into the ditch. Because some vehicles, if you're in a corner and you start to eat bumps, it's gone. It's sliding right out. And this thing in corners, when it's going through bumps at a pretty high speed, it holds itself together and it keeps you on track where you want to go.
Well, Johnny, I'm trying to build this here, and I'm going through it. Sorry, I'm looking off camera here, but I'm
No
just trying to
worries.
do this really quick, and I know I'm going to forget something. But let's see here. It looks like so I paid 59,000 for my like 59 1 for my Badlands, and Becky was close to 60 because she had the hardtop. If I build this thing out, and if I haven't missed anything at all, uh, total MSRP 66,845, and I probably missed a couple things. So let's just say 67,000. That's a huge difference just in a what 3 years.
Yeah,
Um,
Deal Mine for a 2024 in the chat here is making a great point. He says his base in 2021 was 28,500, and now the Big Ben, which is now the base, it's the standard, the
yep.
entry level, you could say, it starts at 39,700. It's $11,200 difference. Now you are getting marine grade vinyl for that. You are getting the rubberized washout floors. You are getting a 12-inch screen, which before you had to kind of get up into an Outer Banks to be able to get that high package. So there's added on options, but for someone that just wants it bare bones and go off-roading, this is some pretty harsh and hard to digest. It's a pill that's hard to swallow, I think is the expression I'm looking for.
Yeah, and income hasn't necessarily followed, so you're at a net loss. Also, keep in mind that the Heritage for it last year, right? And you think about Heritage Limited, that's in the name. It's going to be limited a few years, but you can get the Peak Blue now in the Heritage Limited, and you can also do the white Oxford white painted top, and that is going to be, I think, a very interesting color with that white top, very bright versus
Yeah,
Area 51 or Zur or even Velocity.
and I'm glad the center of the wheels are no longer white. You've got the white rim. I think that's really
Yeah,
cool, but having the black center, I think before is just too much white for my
right.
palette. Speaking
Yep.
of palettes, Ford will have more and more colors that are at charge, like an extra charge. That's going to irritate some people. But
Mhm.
we've got some good news because I remember back when this first got, publicized, shared with the public, they showed painted tops and everyone wanted a painted top. A lot of orders at first had the painted top and then Ford, ended up Webasto. They couldn't get the painted tops done. So I am really happy to share here with the community that when we go with the Bronco build and price, I believe even on a Big Ben, I think even on a Big Ben, I did it, of course, checking because right now I'm at 6.99% interest. Some people have bought their Bronco at 8.99 interest, and that's because supply was here and demand was off camera. It was up here, but supply was down here. Now that supply's here and demand is here, might not be quite there in your area yet, but it's going to happen. That's why my region now that we have Broncos that have piled up on dealership lots, it's funny, back in April, I told people I got accused by one person saying I'm not an advocate for buyers because I give horrible advice by telling people, always buy. And I was like, that's not true. I
No.
don't always tell people to buy. I tell people to buy when it's the right time. So in 2021, when vehicles had not raised, by inflation. And 2022, when almost all of YouTube throughout 2021 and 22, all the big shots were saying, don't buy now, don't accept, this $1,500 increase in price on an F-150 and 1% extra interest. For the longest time, the Ford F-150 stayed at 0%, and they went from $5,000 rebate to zero rebate. That was over about a year and a half. The whole time I was saying, folks, doesn't matter if the MSRP went up by 1,500. We still have 5,000 off and 0%. Buy now, because one day inflation is going to catch up in this price, and they're going to be forced. Right now, they're hoping inflation will calm down, but that's probably not going to happen. And the prices are going to be forced to skyrocket. Buy right now. That's why I was saying that in April.
Yeah.
I wasn't saying buy a Bronco right now. I was saying, well, prices should come down. And actually, I said prices will come down because they're getting piled up in my region. As soon as they pile up in your region, you're going to see a better deal. And it's happened. You either can have the old interest rate from the last few months of 699 and a $4,000 rebate on a 2024, or you can go down the 0.99 interest, basically 1% interest on 5 years. So we're looking at our Bronco thinking, hey, do we sell it for about what we owe and, get back into go from a 72-month loan that we've paid for almost a year and jump in for a 5 year at 0.99, save a ton of interest? Or do we just take some cash and put it on the Bronco to get through it out? And, we put a bit of money into it with a rust proofing, a really expensive rust proofing, plastic protection. We've got all these little knickknacks all around it that we just Bronco. It's one of those vehicles that you kind of get emotional for, so
Yeah.
it'd be hard to see it go.
Well, yeah, we talked about it for years here. We waited. We saw the Ford had the promo video we talked about, and that inspired a lot of people. And at that time in the world's history, how many people wanted to get outside and do something, right? Everybody's cooped up at home. So it
That's right.
became the escape from reality, that cool looking vehicle, alternative to Jeep. Uh, the list keeps going. And so, yes, the emotional attachment. And to get back to your videos about buying and stuff, you have had several videos where you said now's not the best time, or, if you have to, here's how to do it. But you've had several videos advocating on, there might be a better time. So yeah, I'll give you that. Johnny,
Thank
let's
you.
talk about the no charge colors, right? So for
Yeah.
now, you have the no charge colors, which this probably better than anyone: Oxford white, shadow black, iconic silver, metallic, and carbonized gray. Every other
Yep.
color is going to be a 295 upcharge if you pick, which in the scheme of things it's not a lot of money to get the color you want, if as long as what you want is in the color palette. But it kind of says, well, that's a way of taking some of the impact off the MSRP for any color, right? Here's the basic colors.
Yep.
Maybe that's what, I don't know. I guess it's cheaper for them to paint in those colors, or is it just they're trying to create a sort of a standard? I don't.
That's I think it could, you touch on a really good point. I think it could be either one of them. I definitely know that at factory, the more of one thing that you make, the lower cost you
Yeah,
have. So I definitely know that Ford, they were talking about this 4 years ago, that their plan was to really, instead of the F-150 had so many more options that you could have. And I mean, so many more, not just tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands of more options. And I mean, a truck that has at least one variable different with another truck,
right.
hundreds of thousands of more variables, potential creations than what you'd have from other truck companies. And there's a cost to that. Look at Toyota. Toyota's like, how do you want your, Corolla? Or how do you want your Camry? You can pick whatever it is. It's 6 to 8 colors, but each model is it's a cookie cutter. It's here's your, LE, it comes with this, pick your color. Here's your next trim, it comes with this, pick your color. You're not playing around with options. And the Bronco has so many options. Which front bumper do you want? Do you want big tires and a huge, an incredible off-road suspension? All within the Big Bend. There's so many variations of just the Big Bend that most people get dizzy just thinking about. First of all, big question, which model do you get? And then within the model, there's so many options. Definitely
Well,
having low charges. Yeah, I think it's a smart way to avoid increasing more the MSRP. and just having it. And it's not, we're not talking about a Porsche 911 here. You look at a Porsche 911,
Yeah.
they've got about four or six standard colors, but then the next jump up is $3,000. And then the jump up after that, it's $7,000 above, $6 or $7,000 Canadian above your regular MSRP for another palette color. And they do make sure that the best colors are $6 to $7,000.
Yeah, and look at this, the Ford Performance. It was Code Orange was Ford Performance before color, but Shelter Green is reserved, it seems, for Ford Performance. Goes on the Ranger Raptor and the Bronco Raptor, so you can't
Yeah.
get it. I don't know if you do you ever see Shelter Green making it into the regular the other 8 trims as far as a Bronco, or well, with the other 7 because the Heritage is this is it.
If it, yeah, if it's popular, if it's desired, and if later on they can charge $500 to $800 for it as an option, the way they do for some of them, they're not, they're not all 295. Some of them are more. Then
Okay.
I think they will. We have a chance, but I wouldn't expect it at all for 2025. I am interested in this change right here. You can, if you take the Sasquatch package, so that's the wheel package isn't $8,460. It's going Sasquatch, meaning you're changing your whole suspension setup.
Mhm.
It's higher, it's beefier, not just the shocks, but you can actually have the Everglades wheels that a lot of people love. I know
Yeah.
Ali Dubois, I believe, hunted down these wheels to put them on as like her aftermarket wheel package. And we've got one sitting in the showroom, and I do think it is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, they're sort of throwback wheels. Yeah, they do offer the Sasquatch with the non-beadlock capable wheels, whereas before it was only the beadlock capable ones, like I have. So yeah, that's a good option. Also, I mean, and there's a couple things. If you're going to put a winch on your Bronco and you're going or even on the modular bumper and or change the front bumper, you might want to consider not going Lux, because Lux is going to prevent some issues for you in the future with putting a winch on. There are some workarounds, but if you go to Ford's website and you look at the Warren 10,000 pound winch, it says in there, and some verbiage, and I might not have it exactly right, so check it for yourself, but it says something that not compatible with Lux, and because you have the adaptive cruise control in the
Yeah.
front, and it affects some of that. So if you know right off the bat you're going winch and crazy bumpers, and might want to look at a high package versus Lux. So there's a way to save some money and not get something that you necessarily don't have to have, but can also save you in the future with being able to modify your Bronco more.
That's a great point. And I also am not against the idea of getting, I really like the Warren winch, but I don't think there's anything wrong with getting a quality aftermarket winch. I'd just say if you can avoid getting one that's made in China, not, not picking on
Yeah,
things made in China and just realistic. I'd much
yeah,
rather
right.
something made in Germany or made in the United States, ideally. But with your winch, pay the, don't go down the $300 winch route
Right.
and get a 5,000 pound winch saying, well, my vehicle's about 5,000 pounds, I'll be fine. Now you need to double the weight. So if your vehicle's roughly 6,000 pounds, get at least get a 10,000 pound or 12,000 pound winch and get an American made winch. Don't go out and buy yourself one that's made in China. And there are some interesting advantages of getting one that's not steel,
Right.
because, well, steel when it snaps, yeah, it snaps.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, you can get, yeah. And also the other thing is, someone mentioned, yeah, I understand that you can put a winch with Lux on there. It just reduces the options of bumpers and winches to do it. I know it's a workaround. That's what I was saying. There's a workaround, but it reduces the options out there. But yeah, you're right. Going with the non-metallic strap, and also snatch blocks. Understanding how to use snatch blocks and really understanding the winching process takes that tremendous load off, because there's also not just the weight of your vehicle, but are you stuck in mud, and if so, how deep? And all that changes the weight on. Yeah, I remember at Off Rodeo, they did a great job explaining that to us and making me think of things that I didn't think of.
Yeah, if you think about it, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're stuck and you can get the vehicle out by just having two men push behind the vehicle because you really only needed, 400 or 500 pounds of assistance. Well, when you need to winch, it can be like that. At times, you can need 500, 1,000, 1,500, or 5,000, or even 10,000 pounds of assistance because you're really stuck or you're hung up on something. And with, of course, if there's a difference between being hung up on something and needing to be pulled off where there's a lot of friction, whereas compared to, your wheels actually being able to turn and having the assistance of the power of the vehicle. And you never know, your vehicle, you might be in a situation where you're in water and you don't want to take the risk of turning the vehicle back on because you went in water, you sunk, you've got the water up near the air box. You don't want to turn that on and start sucking in water into the engine. You're going to
Yeah.
want to leave it off and you're going to have to really rely 100% on your winch. Now, I found the hard top. I thought we could have a Big Ben with a painted black hard top, but right here we've got it on the Badlands. I can confirm we can get it on the Wild Track. And I really think that the hardtop painted black. Marie has never found the carbonized. It's never quite been for her because she found it was weird. It's like three colors. The
Right.
her design side of things is she doesn't want to see three colors on a vehicle. She,
Right.
black wheels, black fenders. She loves all that. Black soft top. It all fits. Then you throw
Wild
in
track
gray.
grills. Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks great when you can throw on a black top, but then of course you still have the gray front grille on the Badlands, which Marie is a huge fan of the Wild Track because it has that high gloss
Yep.
black grill. So it's just two colors consistent throughout. But I think anyone that's looking at ordering up a Bronco now, get the painted hardtop is just fantastic. So many people wanted that at first, and I think that's desirable right there.
Well, here's an option if you want to go with the dual tops. So you get the hard top, the shadow black painted hard top, plus the black soft top. 3145 upcharge if you're on I think this is a Badlands. Here's key though, it's only available on Black Diamond, Outer Banks, Badlands, and Wild Track series. So if you want the dual tops, which look, if I had the option of going back and waiting 2 more months to get the dual tops, I would have probably waited. But I was just so excited to get the Bronco early. I was like, now I love the soft top. However, what I don't like is the inability to do roof camping, right? Roof
Yeah.
racks, things like that. I know they make any number of things that kind of go over, but it looks a little too Mad Max for me. I don't want that cage over the soft top that you have to raise up to lower the top and then lower the cage again. I just want dual tops. And so one of our modifications this year is putting on an aftermarket top,
Oh, very cool, very cool.
hard
And
top.
here, anyone in a northern climate can appreciate the whole idea of,
Sure.
saying, and it's also nice to switch up your vehicle. When we've got a regular Sasquatch wheel package for our wild track, so the silver lip for the winter. Then when we go to our all black wheels in the summer, it's like, oh, it's the excitement of we've got to change.
Yeah.
I The painted top in Canada, I think, or in northern United States makes a lot of sense. You put your hard top for the winter,
Right.
but the hard top isn't ideal for getting some sun. So when it comes, come month of June, you put your soft top on. That way, when you want to drive to work, you don't have to look at your watch and say, "Do I have time to take my tops off?" And of course, the second row, if you take it off and leave it at home, you have to hope it doesn't rain. And here we get rain out of nowhere. So it's
Yeah.
nice to just have that soft top, easy on, easy off action going down. I do also really like how the new Badlands, I've got a 2024 on the lot, and I can attest to this. They're very cool. The dash it has like the leather look to it, and it's got the orange stitching on the dash. It's the first Bronco that I see with a dash that looks great because I
Wow.
think we can all agree that the dash on the Bronco looks on all the Broncos so far looks pretty plasticky
Yeah.
and kind of average, to be honest. But this, whether it's real leather or fake leather dash with the stitching on the Badlands Bronco 2024 that we have is really solid. It looks amazing.
Well, and I think that goes for the manufacturer's way of constantly improving, like taking what gets the most complaints, obviously the plastic scratching up inside in general. So taking that
Yes.
and changing it, modifying, but also changing it for the new years. There's a reason you want, the 24 or the or eventually 25, 26, whatever. Uh, so part of it, I believe, is to, update, freshen up the brand. The other is to solve legitimate issues that people have been complaining about.
Now we've got a lot of Broncos to talk about. To finish up talking about price, buy now or buy later. I'd
Right.
say last month we were talking. I was kind of mentioning to people like, well, if you're going to buy now, try to have a good amount of cash to put down. But once Broncos pile up, and I said in my region they have piled up, so I am expecting help from Ford. Dealerships are. I said dealerships are complaining to Ford, saying, look, we've got 500,000 or 800,000 or $1 million worth of Broncos on the lot, and we're paying 7% interest on them. We need help to move metal. And they have piled
Hmm.
up. Right now, we must have 12 to 14 Broncos. We've got one on the inside, three right here, about seven up front. So we've got around 12 Broncos, one or two out back, and we want help, and we've been asking for help, and Ford has done it on a 2024 Ford Bronco. Ford needed to help the dealers out to move some metal. This, if it hasn't happened in your region yet, it will as soon as they pile up. We went from 6.99% interest to 0.99% interest on a 2024 model. Impressive. It's the new model. They're just starting to show up the 2024s. And the deal is a little bit better on the 2023s. And if you don't take the low interest deal, I think you save 1% interest on the 2023s. But if you don't take the deal and you go with what has been pretty much standard interest rate across all makes and manufacturers, 6 months ago, the average rate was in the 9 percentile range. Now I'm going to assume they're in the 8 percentile range. But at Ford, it's been pretty standard to see 6.99 to 8.49% interest on Broncos. But if you take the 6.99, you get $4,000 off the 2024 in my region. So if you're being offered really high interest and that doesn't, and with no rebate in your region, I'd say hold off just a little bit longer once they pile up, or look in a different region. Maybe look at buying a Bronco from a different state where in that state they have piled up and Ford has given potentially a special rebate to that state to help that state move its Broncos.
Yeah, Johnny, I think that new dash might be a very good video for you to do, because I'm looking right now, and I know I keep looking off camera here, but I'm looking over at my computer. At least in the pictures that they show, if you go to the Badlands, for example, and look at the interior picture, it looks like they're
Standard.
traditional gray with no stitching.
Yeah. Yeah,
So that's
I will.
interesting. Yeah,
Thank
because
you. And
I did
it's
not
black.
know. I haven't heard about it or seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's we've got a 2024 Badlands. I believe it's non-Sasquatch, but I'll do a little video on it. And it's got what looks like a black leather dash with orange stitching, and I'm loving it. And of course, my father there from being a big 1960s and 1970s muscle car guy and owner. I remember being a little kid, and he'd go out and just a regular day, it'd be pretty normal for him to do, a burnout. And he loved his muscle cars, but that means, he likes the old school, leather dashes and whatnot. And he's always had a problem with my Broncos interior, but when he saw the Bronco Badlands with the leather interior, he's like, wow, that's really, really sharp. He liked that quite a bit.
All right. So I don't know if the thinking was just material they use, cost, price points, things like that. But I know this: when the top's down and we're out doing whatever and we get dusty and dirty, it makes it really easy to clean up with a damp rag, just to wipe it down. And now Becky she doesn't like the fact that she keeps her saddle, all of her horse riding stuff in the back of her Bronco, and the side panels get scratched up very easily. So she doesn't like that. But in my Bronco, I like the ease of cleaning the dust off. Which, I mean, I know you can do it with leather, but I'm just wondering if you get them dirty enough, the stitching's going to become something to. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
the first world
that's
stuff.
true.
But I mean,
Stitching will stain, plastic will not.
yeah. So I'm okay with it. However, the scratching part of it, when you grab the door handle, you can scratch that area behind the door handle pretty easily.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that. So um, there's an accessory for someone to make something that sticks in that area on the plastic. But I like it just because it feels rugged. and I don't feel like I'm going to cut something if I get in there with a, whatever. Of course, the marine grade vinyl seats, you don't want to get something in your pocket. But I mean, I don't know where I was going with that, other than it just feels rugged, like the Bronco seems to be. So
Yeah, it's having a plastic, the interior, I agree with you. It feels rugged. It feels more utilitarian, more like something that you go across a
yeah,
desert with. And having a leather dash definitely does feel more upscale and maybe a little less utilitarian. So I'll get a video in on that.
yeah,
I'm definitely loving the painted black top, but we've been huge fans of, in the winter. A lot of people think the soft tops are horrible in the winter. They've been fantastic to us on all
sure,
three in the winter. The new one has been the best of all for, cutting out the sound, but it's a Bronco. So there's still sound
right,
in, we're not driving a Lincoln Nautilus here. So we're
mm,
definitely hearing the wind noise. But hey, the doors are light enough. So I wouldn't want the doors to be, you know, have much better sound deadening, but end up being 30 pounds each heavier and
right,
just be too much to handle. And I wouldn't want the soft top or hard top to be any heavier than it is. Because yeah, the midsection on the hard top, two guys, no problem. By
right,
myself, I'm worrying about hurting my back. It's very doable, but with the
yeah,
different angles and whatnot, I might get, hurt myself doing it. So I don't want a Bronco that is less practical just to have
get a
less
little
wind
flat.
noise in the vehicle. It has a radio, and that radio has been improved. And
Yep,
we do have, if you get a soft top, you do get the prep package in case later on, as of I think it was 22 or halfway through 22. Anyways, all the 23s you'll be looking at would have it. And would I buy a used Bronco right now? No, because the resale value on these is high and the
yeah,
interest rate is high. Now, if
high.
I could pay the whole thing cash, yeah, used Bronco could very much make sense if I can pay all of it cash, but not at the used interest rates when I can get a new one. And yes,
And it
pricing
doesn't
is
matter. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
pricing is region specific. So very to some of the people in the community, there's a good chance your area doesn't have 0.99% financing on a Bronco, but it's in our area and it happened as soon as they started, once we could officially say that they've piled up. As they were piling up, no. But once they were piled up, we got the 0.99 interest. And when you can have 1% interest versus use interest, the Broncos hold their value so well that it's not great if you're shopping used, but it is great if you own a Bronco and you're looking to sell.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say is that also people with tier one credit, it's still, if you're not dealing with the lower interest rate to push product, right? That's because of necessity. But if you're not in that position, you have little leverage. Even tier one credit's not getting you a low interest rate in
That's right.
most parts of the country. In the comments, there's talking about the cluster, the digital cluster. Yeah, I agree. In 25, we should be all digital in the cluster in this, not part analog, part digital screen. I mean, it should be like the Ranger Raptor. I think that would really give it a different look, at least operational. So, I mean, I'm okay with mine, but I think it's time for that. After having the Dark Horse with that display in there, it kind of wrecks it for everything else you drive because that's so clean. It was like watching the best TV I've ever seen in my life. And they've done a remarkable job with not allowing glare. I was kind of worried
Yeah.
about when the sun came in a certain way if it was going. I didn't have any glare whatsoever. So I do know that the digital cluster would be a major upgrade to the interior of the Bronco. Yep.
Now we've talked price, Dwayne. What would be for you? What makes the most sense when it comes to the best Bronco to buy?
Hmm.
Value. You get two choices here: value and a sensible dream version, like someone that wants it. If the end goal is to have value, which one would you pick? And if the end goal is to have a lot of wow factor at the best price possible, what would be your two Broncos that you pick?
Okay, so if I'm not heavy in Broncos, I just like the way they look. I like the idea of them, and I'm not going to do any major off-roading. I would start probably with the Big Ben and modifying it to get everything that I can get on a Big Ben that meets my requirements, right? Because if you don't want trail turn assist, or you have it, but you don't want, say, stay bar disconnect,
Yeah.
right? or you're not looking at Lux or whatever, then the Big Ben might be something to start with and build on. Now, if I'm going for medium of the road, I don't want to change a bunch of stuff that comes on it, but I don't do a lot of off-roading. Maybe once in a while go to the beach or the dirty trail. I'm at Outer Banks. But if there's any part of you that's aggressive or thinks you could off-road often and different types of terrain, whether it be sand or rock or off-road, I am always leaning toward the Badlands. I think the Badlands is a huge value because of the stay bar disconnect. But if you like everything a
Absolutely.
Badlands has, and you're not worried about stay bar disconnect, then you can go with the Wild Track and get that little bit better up interior feel, right, with the carpet and things like that. Um, Now, if you just want to spend a bunch of money and to have the least amount of limitations as possible, you go with the Raptor.
Yeah.
So I know I kind of cheated and added two more in there, but I would say value wise, Big Ben, option it out to meet my comfort. Medium of the road would be the I think for most people would be the Outer Banks.
And I would say that the Big Ben can be a great choice if you're looking at leasing your Bronco because it has the best residual. So on a
Mhm.
full 3-year lease, it's a 70% residual, meaning the difference is what you pay. So when residual is at 70%, it means you pay 30%. So over 3 years, you pay 30% of your Bronco. Now, if we compare that to, let's say, a Ford Mach E, the Mustang Mach E, on 4 years, the residual in my area, I believe, is 33%, meaning you pay 67% of the vehicle during your 4-year lease. So the
Wow.
Big Ben is a great option to lease. I'd say a one great sensible option is lease a Big Ben. And if after 3 or 4 years, you're starting to get a little tired of it, you're not sure if you should buy it back or not, but you really don't want to get a new vehicle because let's say the market prices have exploded and it's pushed you out of the new market. Well, then what's great is you with Ford, you can buy back your lease. And now that your 3-year warranty is up, I'd say now is a great time. That will be a great time in 3 years when your lease is done being paid. Finance what's left, you have the buy option, and then start modifying it. Because if you modify right out the bat and something breaks on the vehicle, let's say you've got an engine tune and you have an engine problem,
Hmm.
you're going to have trouble, even if maybe the tune has nothing to do with the engine problem. You weren't supposed to put on a tune. Usually, generally a tune will ruin your warranty on the engine. So I'd say test it out, lease it, test it out for 3, 4 years. And then when the warranty is done, if you end up buying it, great time to modify it. So I agree. We're also looking right now for Marie. We're kind of in between. Do I just buy myself a second vehicle and take an F-150 Tremor because I like to change and resale on it is going to be excellent in 2 years. It's also if you have an X plan or an employee, so either a partner plan or an employee plan or a dealer plan on any Ford product, the biggest rebate is on the Tremor. It's incredible. So I'd be in a great position to change it in a year. Do we go down that road? Or do we get Marie, the sensible choice, an Escape plug-in, which she loved the new styling, wasn't a fan of the 22, loves the new 23, 24 styling. Go to work when she gets back to work, all electric. Or do we kind of go with what we both really our hearts want to do, and that's get her. We saw it in the photos. I had blue Badlands in the background. It's a 23. So I'm like, hun, we'd get a 12-inch touchscreen if you just pick a 24. But basically a Big Ben 2024, have us lease it. And if she still has it and doesn't want to give it up in 3 years, buy it out and then start modifying it. That is definitely one of our options. But if we were to if we're at zero Broncos and we are getting a Bronco, well, I think we'd want the most versatility, the most wow factor, and the best price. Well, now with the leather dash on the 24 Badlands, we'd probably get a Badlands. I definitely consider getting the 2.3-liter manual for myself. But if Marie's going to need to drive the vehicle once in a while, which even if she doesn't need to, she'll want to, kind of pushes us out of the manual market, which I think it's a nice price at 51,385 for a machine that has so much capability and look. And we'd probably go now that we've got Layla, so we can forget at the two door. We
Yeah.
both would have liked that, but It'd be a four-door, probably a four-door Badlands, and because she needs to have automatic, I think it'd be great if Ford could have a manual 2.7 liter, but we'd end up with a 2.7 liter automatic. Well worth the money. It's an incredible engine. I don't think we definitely would not go up to a Bronco Raptor. We kind of felt like getting a Wild Track was our baby Raptor.
Yeah.
And we're thrilled with the Wild Track. And if ever there came a day where like 35-inch tires just isn't enough, we want to spend more money on fuel. So let's, lift it up another 2 inches. Then
Yeah.
we could throw on 37s. And it's got Fox suspension. And that's what I love about Wild Track. The Wild Track has the Fox suspension, and it has been so incredibly comfortable. A little more body roll, but it's so good over the bumps. And our roads are just crap here. And when I go back road driving up in the mountains, the roads are really bad, but you just don't feel it on the Wild Track. Well worth the extra money for that Haas 3.0 suspension.
I was going to say that's a huge value add. Before a couple years ago, when you asked me why should you go Wild Track, I really couldn't give you a good reason over a
Yeah,
Badland.
same.
But now there is a huge reason to go that route. And of course, the Wild Track, when you're looking at the pricing, say, well, the pricing's a little bit more. What's standard 2.7 anyway? So it's not like you could get a Badlands with a 2.3 and all the fixing, so to speak. Now at a Wild Track, you're going to have the Haas, you're going to have 2.7. Completely carves it out and makes it a very viable trim over the Badlands. I was trying to find some info. I don't know if you can find this out better than I can because you have more, obviously, inventory. Ford was talking about changing the 2.3 to be dual injection, and I know for the Mustang.
That'd be
I
great.
don't. Yeah, I don't know if they did it if they ended up doing it for the Mustang, but it does not appear that they've done it for the Ranger or the Bronco. Just FYI.
That's right. And I would like the 2.3 liter to come with dual injection so that, the potential carbon buildup from, even though it's gotten better and whatnot, we haven't seen
Right.
problems the way we did early on. But I'd love to have the dual injection to just not have to worry about the potential of carbon buildup and having to do a walnut blasting, which is a pretty expensive.
Sure.
It's about the price of two, you know, European vehicle oil changes. But still, in my area, if you have a
Yeah.
European vehicle like a Porsche or an Audi or a Mercedes, BMW, you're generally looking at an oil change of $600 to $800. So the walnut blasting doesn't seem, from that perspective,
Be
that
that
much money. But I just don't want to have to go there. Uh, the
Yeah.
the the 2.7 liter for me is just a perfect mix between a ton of power and reliability, and not ever having to think that maybe I should tune this. It's just perfect right out of the box. It's perfection.
Yeah, I didn't have and don't have a reason to mess with the engine on it because it's everything that I kind of need. I don't want to tune it. I don't want to start changing that stuff because you don't just change one thing, you start changing a lot of different things. The one thing I would say is if you're going to keep a Bronco, any vehicle, but let's talk Bronco right now. If you're going to keep a Bronco long term, you really, really, really need to invest in um, good engine oil and frequency, changing the oil more frequent.
Over
But
here.
that's another video, another day, and that's coming out. You'll see this week. I learned some stuff that made my head like hurt for days this week. So the Bronco is. What do you think, Johnny, about when Ford first launched it? You had the incredible energy behind the launch. Then you had a lot of us here on YouTube taking the information and running with it, doing videos on it, and creating a lot of excitement. A lot of people in the comments right now have been here since day one with the Bronco. Do you think Ford needs to do something to bring more attention to the Bronco again, or do you think the attention's still there? We're just dealing with too many other things like inflation.
Yeah, I think that obviously there's going to be all sorts of attention on the Bronco again if they announce something such as a Bronco pickup truck,
Sure.
or I think when they announce, for example, when the 2.3 liter gets its plug-in variant in the Bronco, that's something that
Yeah,
they should really push. Make it known, make some commercials, do some marketing behind it. I think it will be needed. Otherwise, it's just not really going to get noticed. And we've seen it with the Ford Escape plugin. At first, we're like, there should be like people banging down the doors for this. It's like a great value. It's an incredible machine, but I don't think there was enough publicity out there for it. Now that they've put more publicity behind it, now we're getting people coming in and be like, "Oh, I just heard about this whole like the Escape being plug-in." Same thing for like the Lincoln Corsair. Not a ton of people know about the Lincoln Corsair being an all-wheel drive plug-in. So I think the Broncos definitely going to need to push when they come out with, because people form opinions, and once their opinions are formed, it's very hard to change their minds. So I think there needs to be a big marketing push once there's supply out there about Bronco pricing, because I think a lot of people have it in their mind that, oh well, if you want a Bronco you have to spend so much more money than MSRP, so never mind, I'm not even going to go look at it. And I actually had someone that bought a brand new Jeep because they didn't even check the Ford dealer, even though like I see them at the gym like once a week. We chat here and there, but when she finally saw my green Bronco come in and she had had her Jeep for 2 months, she's like, "Oh my goodness, I made a huge mistake. Your Bronco looks so much better. That's absolutely what I wanted. I just didn't want to pay over MSRP for it." And I was
Mm.
like, "What?" I was like, I I would have made sure that you would have gotten a good deal. So I think in order to fight some of the sour lemonade, they need to add a little sugar to
Yep.
the lemonade. Don't actually need to do that in real life, but I think marketing wise, they need to throw in a little bit of sugar and remind people that the Bronco is a great vehicle and that it can come out at a reasonable price. So when they bring the lower interest rates, I think they should push the marketing on it. And it'd be great if they could figure out, and every manufacturer has trouble with this, but to get dealers really set on pricing,
Right. You
standardized pricing.
yeah. Well, that would help. Is the only thing is that I don't like things that feel like they have to charge a certain amount, but maybe, and I guess this is the part of having a free market, is they have the options just putting whatever on it if you need it. I didn't like that at all. That's why I liked my dealer, because everything I got was MSRP. Which, think about it, over the last 10 years, MSRP is a high price, right? But over the
Yeah.
last 3 years, if you paid MSRP, you were getting a deal.
Yeah.
You said Ford Escape, the Ford Escape. I was watching a Ford Authority. Don't know if you saw this. Ford Escape sales jumped 73% during Q1 2024.
Yeah.
I haven't dove
Marketing
into
help.
the numbers to see how it breaks down or whatever, but yeah, you were mentioning that. So I think when the Bronco has that, very good point. It's a hybrid. They change something. They bring out the truck if they ever do. I think um, I really believe, and here's what I think, Johnny. Deep down, I think if I were in charge at Ford and and the offer to build a Bronco truck was on the table, and I knew the Ranger Raptor was coming out, I would say wait at least 6 months after the sales started. Wait 6 months to see how the Ranger sales go and the Ranger Raptor sales, because if you think about a Bronco in a pickup truck, that would be built more like a Ranger Raptor, right? If you ask me if I were doing it, I would wait to see if the market is there for the Ranger Raptor and start selling. It's tremendously well and they're over their market um, estimates.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't perform that well, then I would bring out the Bronco Raptor to fill that market.
Now, All Terrain Nation, thank you very much for the donation. And I want to plug over on Instagram. You pointed out one Ranger Raptor in one area that's, I believe it was $30,000 over MSRP. And that's for a Ranger Raptor. According to Ford Authority, the highest that they had found was 20,000 over MSRP. And like, that's wild, because here there's actually, I believe, one or two Ranger Raptors in my region that it's only like an hour or two away. I could pick up a black Ranger Raptor right now. Well, not now because it's Sunday night and they're
Yeah,
closed. But I mean, come Monday morning,
yeah,
I could just call them up and say like, "Hey, can you ship this to my dealer?" And at worst, they'd say no, and I'd have to go buy it from
right.
that dealer direct. But there's no markup on it.
Well, there's a
So
there's a dealership that's kind of, big on social media. They do a lot of stuff. They were saying they had two on the lot, and they were said, "Come on down, and we'll make you a deal," type thing. So I don't know why someone would pay 30 over when I just have no idea why.
remember at one point Ford Lightnings were selling for 510. Some dealers were trying to get, some people were buying them and then asking 50K over because
Right,
they had, one of the first ones that arrived in the country. So
right,
they figured they'd ask 50 over. And that's wild. So I really like your point. Like, before rushing into getting a Ranger Raptor, especially if you're doing it because you're thinking, oh, well, great resale in 6 or 12 months. If that's the case, hold off.
right.
But if you want a Ranger Raptor because you want a ton of power, a ton of capability, and just an amazing looking machine, yeah, go ahead, buy one, but make sure you buy at MSRP. And if you're ordering, like I said earlier in the show, no matter what you order from Ford, make sure your dealer, if your order is going in, it's a confirmed order verification process, that they take your driver's license, that you sign and they sign the build sheet, keep your copy, and that you get a copy of a purchase offer
Right.
or lease offer and get
Absolutely.
them to sign it. Keep your copy so that when it comes in, you don't have complications. But yeah, that's definitely the way I would go, the route I would go. So Ed brought up a really good point in his area. Broncos have not piled up on lots, so it could be a while before they get a much lower interest rate. Like we saw a 6% cut in interest rate from last month to this month. So for my region, it's definitely a really
Well,
excellent time,
it,
because if all these happen to sell within a month or two, and then we have no Broncos on the lot or very few, that interest rate could go back up. Supply and demand does dictate price.
right. And also, the used market is the telltale for what's coming in the new car market, right? So, if the used market, if there's low inventory there, that just tells you there's more people being driven from new to used. But then when interest rates drop, the natural thinking is that the new car market is going to do well. The business is going to pick up. They're going to start selling more units and dry up that inventory pretty quickly. And but now that we're back to production being more of a normal number, so they're able to feed the system
Yeah,
more than before, when we would have a say an uptick in sales, it would immediately dry up the supply chain because we were limited on how many they could build, right? I mean,
absolutely.
they sold 36,000 escapes last, or they built 36,000, I think it was, last month. That's a lot of cars. That's for one model of car,
Yeah,
one manufacturer. Start adding up all of Ford's stuff out there. Yeah, there's a lot. Look, there's a lot of heavy duty trucks at a holding lot here in our area. I was going to go by and get a video of it. I've never seen so many Oxford white Ford vans, Ford trucks, and typically bigger trucks sitting at this one holding lot. And I thought it was odd they were here. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on with that. So, I'm sure video to follow, like and subscribe. But I think we're in a position to where, if things can change, not just interest rate, but the comfort level of the consumer, right? Consumer sentiment. I think it's the CPI number. When you start changing someone's attitude and they think they have a compelling future, the future's brighter. Interest rates drop a little bit, they're more inclined to buy that new vehicle, and the vehicle that's fun. The Bronco's fun. You need a car, but you might not need a Bronco, right? So you're going to go with a Maverick. You're going to go maybe with a base Ranger. You need a small truck.
yeah. With the current economy, I've seen people and businesses that would normally buy F-150s buy Ford Mavericks
Yeah,
because
sure,
their reasoning is we don't know what's to come, or the reasoning is business has slowed down. Remember, at one point, construction
sure.
companies were booked 1 or even 2 years out. And now some construction companies are booked, a few weeks out, or they're booked 2 months out. But then after that, they have, next to nothing or nothing at all.
Yeah.
Sometimes, they're only 3/4 booked for the next 3 months. So huge difference in supply, just the entire economy's supply. Spending seems to be coming down, So we'll see what that does because yeah, people always have a choice to get, like well, look at us. We're looking at the whole idea of do we get, could we have a Ranger Raptor in the yard plus our wild track? And we're already thinking, you know what, it'd be smarter, wiser to have, a plug-in escape. And then we're like, well, can we go in halfway and get
Right.
a Bronco and a Big Bend? Now he would be very happy with the Big Bend, but we're still going to be spending tens of thousands more than the
Right.
plug-in escape and fuel. So I think a lot of people are having these discussions. So I think Broncos, if they're not piled up in your area, maybe you've got an area that's really, more money or more, my area has a lot of doctors and a lot of lawyers
Right.
and a lot of university professors. But university professors often walk or take the bus. They're their own special batch, or they've got like a 12-year-old Toyota Camry because
Yeah.
they're living their best life doing boring stuff.
Right. Right.
They're not doing anything fun like driving
Less
around top
adventurous.
down or off-roading, nothing dangerous at all. And then your lawyers and your doctors are, and we've seen it a lot. Our used lot has seen several Porsche Macans come through, Porsche Macans. We've seen a lot of BMWs, Audis, Mercedes. We're taking a lot of luxury vehicles from doctors and high paid professionals because they're getting, a Mustang Mach-E because it just financially makes sense, makes dollars and cents. So I
Yeah.
think for the show this evening, unless you want to throw in a point before we wrap up, I think that's pretty much a show for tonight. It's just pretty much a wrap. I really appreciate it. I saw that Ed gave a lot of information
Yeah.
this evening. M. Peugeot, Ridgeview, 4 high, 4 low. Deal mine for a 2024. Great information putting in the chat. So really appreciate all the information added and the discussion, the quality community interactions going on in the chat. In this format, it's great. I can actually get to see the messages without them disappearing. I'm not sure when you're online if that happens to you, but normally when I've got my camera up and I'm alone, someone's with the chat will only show for 10,
Yeah.
less than
Yep.
10 seconds. So it's really hard to catch.
Well, they go away, and I've never done the live directly to YouTube like this. So it was a little bit of technology. So I'm sorry about the communication earlier with the Wi-Fi, and I didn't think of switching over to cell. I'm normally hardwired.
Yeah.
At one point in time, we were doing it Wi-Fi, and I was famous for having the glitches, but uh, anyway, so sorry about the first part. If there's any
No
part of the
worries.
video you want to redo sometime, absolutely. But look, Johnny, you're a wealth of knowledge. You give us, I watch your videos and I learn so much because you're not just skimming the surface. You are diving deep. And some of your videos are a little bit longer because you're covering all of that. So I definitely appreciate you. And I learn a lot, my friend. So keep it up.
Well, I really appreciate that, and it's funny because I often feel a little like, oh, I didn't get to that level that Dwayne gets to when he talks about, you like, for example, your catch can videos, like you really
Yeah.
dive into more the engineer, we could say the engineering side of things, the more technical side of things. So I think I really hope everyone, we love your channel, and we really
Yeah.
hope and
Thank
think
you.
everyone should go over, check out Dwayne's channel. He's a great family man, taking care of his family while his family also takes care. Our families, we take care of each other, but you're a family man, and I hope everyone here will be supporting you. And I look forward to your upcoming videos, my friend.
And Peugeot, thank you for that comment, and Ed and everyone else. You have a great community here, by the way. I'm watching all the comments go through, and that comes from
Good luck.
years of hard work. So you have a lot of great people here. So awesome comments. Where I would finish it up with is I have a video dropping this week that is going to make heads explode when it comes to the oil change drama. Somebody's going to think, "Oh no, didn't we solve this?" No, we haven't even begun the conversation. So, Johnny,
Wow.
you're going to love this one. This one made my head just hurt. It
I'll be
was fun.
watching it twice, and I might be modifying. I think I might be, from the sounds of it, might be doing some modifications or some changes in
Yeah,
my
no,
habits
no,
when it comes to the Bronco.
no, and that's the fun thing. Impuzo is probably going to like it too, based on an earlier comment he had. But look, we really, really need to dive deep on some of this value add stuff to try to help people with their investment. Because look, let's face it, everything's expensive, right? So let's take care of
Yeah,
what you have and modify it. But Johnny, thank you. I appreciate the offer, and thanks for inviting me on the show. I definitely, I know I
of course.
reached out and said, hey, we're returning to YouTube finally. And I've taken some much needed time off, and we're
Good.
back, and we've got a lot of good stuff. So thank you.
Well, thank you, my friend. Blessed to have you on the channel, Anthony Sparacio. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing that, but thank you for sharing some kindness. Let's, as we move forward in our week, folks, let's try to remember to be the best, kindest versions of ourselves, because when we're kind, even if we're kind to people that are rude, that's a reflection on them, and our kindness is a reflection on ourselves. So let's try to be the best versions of ourselves, take the care of our families, and of course, I do wish everyone more cars and more power, and I hope you get to put the pedal to the metal, just maybe not with the baby in the back. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for watching the show. Really appreciate everyone in the comment section. Have a great week, everyone. Take care.
Bye. See ya.